Do you mind if we go out?
No, please. It's unlocked back there, I think. We'll get started here in a bit, y'all. Ignore me. I did unmute it, so hopefully I won't embarrass myself too bad. Hey, stranger. Oh, good. I haven't seen you in a while. Yeah, you're not the first one, no.
I know.
Somebody got here.
So where's the other bathroom?
There's one there. There's one there.
That one is.
There's two over there.
There are.
There's the.
Okay.
Take your first possible left and you'll see it.
I never ever knew.
Ah, that's hilarious. All right. Oops. What up?
Not too much. I'm starting to get my my garden energy back now. Trimming all the trees. I got my first mulberries on my little
Oh,
barn here.
nice. I haven't even looked at mine. I'm guessing it's season for mulberries.
Yeah, this is a baby. It's a dwarf one I got from Reisenberg, Albert.
Yeah.
And, he said once it starts, it'll never stop.
I was gonna say, it's a dwarf now. It just
Yeah.
means it's slow growing.
Well, what he said was it would never get over 6 foot.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, my neighbors have a and it's a lot of work to put the sheets out and shake the tree and get everything. So
It's
I just wanted a little one.
without a doubt.
I got my first pomegranate.
Oh, wow. Oh, you're way ahead of me.
Yeah,
Pomegranate's one of those I have not had great success with.
well, I'm not trying to count my chicken.
Yeah, well, if you got a fruit, you're kicking butt, even if it's
So,
tiny.
we'll see. Lots and lots of mango blossoms this year. It looks like it's gonna.
Nice. I got mango here. I was gonna say, have you been to this class before?
Probably.
Yeah.
I just needed a night out.
No, that works. And there's snacks when you're here.
I'm being a stepmom to a couple of Eric's kids.
No, geez.
He's in the hospital waiting heart surgery.
Boy.
And I've been friend zoned, so
Yeah.
I'm just waiting to explain the rest of my life.
Yeah, right.
It's all right. It's all good. And I have how many you expect me to
I think we had 30 people on the list, but most of them are online. So no, not 30 in here. No. That would be overwhelming. There's two people out back checking out stuff. So, and I just saw somebody else pull in. So we still got 10 minutes.
But yeah, I'm sure I've done this over the years. This has been
I would be shocked if you hadn't, but I'm like,
2016 is when I started.
so some people I remember them being in class, and other people I'm like, oh, you've taken this 6 times.
The one with like the cacao.
Yeah. Oh, thank you for reminding me of that. Yeah.
And just like little Jack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's always, I'll think of something else.
I just went to the liquor store and bought brandy. I'm gonna make a heart tincture this weekend. That's gonna be my Valentine's Day project.
Got the chocolate in the freezer, so it'll be easier to cut.
I'm looking forward to that German stuff that's coming up.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. I forget the woman's name was coming, but
You got already.
who is it?
Well, I don't know, tonight, I don't know. I don't know.
Right.
They filled up for both days.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
I didn't know. All right. I better taste this and make sure it's okay. Mm. That is bitter.
I was trying not to disturb you because I too sit in my car.
I was like sitting in my car.
Yeah, I do that more often than anybody knows.
You can definitely always serve me, but I like it as much.
I totally get it. I mean, literally yesterday, I probably spent 7 hours in my car at different water.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh, here's a bunch of closet.
I think that's on the list. We might get a chance to talk about it. We'll see. I always have way too many things. We run out of time.
Suma.
I got that.
You have any powdered Damiana?
I believe so.
Because I need it. That's what I'm looking for.
Oh, for tonight or for something?
I was gonna make, I have some nut butter in there. I'm gonna make a cow nut Damiana.
Yeah, because I've got a fresh bag here.
I always have I always have a sriracha,
Yeah.
scale here. I'm just telling you.
Oh, I didn't know. Yeah, so I brought one.
It's in the basket.
Okay.
I want it to taste good. That's why I thought.
Yeah. Um, okay, that'll be plenty.
Is that good enough?
Good evening.
For sure. And you guys could, if you come together, for sure, scoot your chairs together if you want.
Okay.
I like we do this for everybody to feel like.
Oh,
Yeah.
we live together.
That's what I'm
so-
saying. It's like we kind of work together too.
Okay, thanks.
Cheers.
All right. Nobody last minute. Yay. All right, I got everybody there. Hey, Jerry. That's weird. That's why. Yeah, that's better. You actually got some daylight out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, move the chairs around, whatever.
Yeah, I'm not sitting on the floor to be
You're allowed.
honest. So,
And you can get a bigger pillow if you want.
Yeah, I will. Where do you feel like-
I might actually sit in a chair. I didn't know it was an option.
I was getting a pillow for the chair.
More people. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Wow. Okay, we got more people coming live and in person than I thought. Man, we got a gang coming here. Hello. Oops. How do? Howdy, howdy. Ah.
Do you ever try shake?
Yeah.
I love it. All right. Oops, get these people in. Hey, hey. All right. We're gonna give everybody another minute to get in here. I'm gonna go wrangle Renee and we'll get started. Eesh. All right.
Yeah, she was.
No, I know. And
Did everybody get a handout? You got one, you guys got one. Yeah, take this one. First got one, cool. Those. Let's see who's sneaking on. It's on record. Nobody waiting to get in. All right. I say we get started. Hi. Renee will join us here in a minute. And welcome online. I see new faces and stuff, or names. And Renee will be out here to monitor chat here in just a minute. So feel free to type something in the chat or just unmute yourself and shout it out. And hopefully I will keep up with letting anybody in who comes in a few minutes late. It's crazy. I think we had somebody from Australia who was going to join us, but it's probably like 2 o'clock in the morning there. I have no idea. They thought it was yesterday because there's a 24-hour time change. Go figure. So if you don't know, I'm Bob and Renee's hiding around here somewhere. And every year we've done this one. Yay, it's Valentine's Day. And so, talking about aphrodisiacs and herbs and sex and all that just seemed appropriate somehow. And it's horrifying to think that I've taught this class probably 20 times. And it's actually a fun class. For those of you who are here, because it involves snacks. I apologize for those of you who don't have snacks, but you can run out to the store afterwards and buy some. And it's funny. We'll talk about some herbs. We'll talk about some food. They're interchangeable oftentimes. And I go on the assumption when I'm playing with food or herbs, unless I'm talking to a very select group, I just assume everybody knows absolutely nothing. It's easier that way. And like, I enjoy cooking. So I just assume everybody loves cooking and knows how to
on that
prepare
note,
a mango.
he
And
just had me come in here because with no recipe, I was making you something. And he was like, don't do that. Like, come in, like,
show people.
come in here. And I was like, okay, recipe.
So if you don't know it, this is Renee, my other half. And I'll give the selfless plug.
I'll roll them in rosebuds.
Oh, bonus. Oh yeah, I forgot I brought this. Cool. So if you don't know, this is the Tradition School of Herbal Studies. We're at our school location, but also part of acupuncture and herbal therapies. I'm an herbalist and an acupuncturist. She is also a registered herbalist in
I'm serving a mess.
what's in there?
Looks
Well, actually,
terrible, but it
we'll look
tastes
at it in a
good.
minute. And we've got, I don't even know what classes we have coming up, but we have a bunch of
We
classes
have
coming up.
flyers, so you don't have
Yeah,
to know.
there you go. Good. It's really funny. I always go, it's always an interesting subject to talk about. Nothing like talking about sex in front of a bunch of strangers. But what's even worse,
Yes.
for this class, my mother has come to it, my father has come to it, sometimes with their boyfriend or girlfriend, and my brother with
Sometimes
his wife.
together,
Yes,
divorced.
yes. And I'd much rather talk to total strangers than have that conversation in front of my parents. But so be it.
Also, Bob's done this for preteen adolescent,
Well, and
not
normally,
this class.
normally,
Sex ed.
yeah. Whoops, I got somebody else I got to let in. So, normally I tell you about what an awesome herbalist we are and our herbal background and so forth. But herbs are such I won't say a small part of this one. It's always interesting. My mother was probably better at talking about sex ed than anything else, because it was
I want to stop you real quick.
okay.
As you can see, if you felt more comfortable leaning up against her on the ground, because some of you have never been here before, in the other room is just tons of pillows and whole throw circles like big
Yes.
enough for 2 people to get
Help
on.
yourself.
And we are used to just making people comfortable. So go in that area and gather anything that you want and bring it
Smart
in here and throw it up against the wall here. There's things to lean on, however you feel better.
Yes, and there's
so go.
bathrooms in there. There's a crappy bathroom there, and then there's a bathroom out where you came
Because
in
we
as
have
well.
one out of order, so we want to make sure, even though it's not set up, but it's fine bathroom. So we opened that one up
works.
just to, yeah.
Hey, Brooke,
Mhm.
long time no see.
I feel like she's done this class.
Oh, I think half these people have done this class before. They just come to the stand. So, I always say I had the mom did a good job. She had The Joy of Sex. I was like 6 years old. That was the coffee table reading book. And some of you may remember that one from the 60s or 70s, whenever the heck it came out. And at a very young age, she was like, it was actually way too advanced for me, but boys and sex and girls and sex, because she thought it was important that I know about both. And so lo and behold, many years after that, I was working dropout prevention, 8th grade dropout prevention in a private nonprofit school here. And they were nice kids, but 8th graders, they were like 14, 15 years old, assumed they knew everything. And my job was working as a counselor. I did group and individual counseling with them. And so one of my jobs was to teach sex ed. And I was like, okay, and no curriculum, no idea. So I came up with the idea that their very first day of class was their homework assignment was to write down 3 questions. Don't have to put your name on the paper, just hand them in as long as you hand me something with scribbles on it. And then I based my curriculum on what they wanted to know. And boy, I learned a lot. And I think that started actually before the internet. So I actually had to do research. And
You didn't know what they were talking about?
I was like, I don't know what that is. So fast forward and got a degree in education after that, and ended up doing my final internship at Admiral Farragut down here towards the water. And so this was the opposite of the kids I was working with. These kids came from, professional parents with lots of money, all the best education. And the other kids were like inner city, trying to avoid gangs, oftentimes, challenged it in their homes or in finances. And I was like, I got asked to do it. They also did not have a curriculum, and they needed somebody to teach sex ed, and drugs and alcohol and so forth. And
Funny how your name keeps coming up.
yeah. And they said, well, can you teach that? And it's like, well, it just so happens I'm a pro at this. And I taught them the same thing. their first assignment was ask 3 questions. And we went from there. Luckily, there was the internet because those kids had way harder questions. No, it was really, that was the fascinating thing. It was the same questions. And in both groups, it was men and women. And it's funny now, fast forward 30 years. And when I teach gynecology for our herb students, I have in there nurses with 20, 30 years under their belt. We occasionally have an MD.
Women with the part.
Men and women, yes, both. But and the fascinating thing is even the MD said, I didn't get this much information in med school, which is a sad
I
statement.
do make the I do make the joke that Bob's gotten more people pregnant in the Tri-County area than anybody I know.
And so, you know, a lot of times when we talk about
Fertility is solid.
sex and aphrodisiacs and all of that, it can be a really difficult or serious conversation. And we're talking hormones, this and that, blah, blah. And this class is fun. So one of the issues when, you know, if somebody goes, I don't know, it's Valentine's Day or whatever, we want to have some fun with herbs, or we need help from the herbs because we're getting older, out of shape or whatever. The reality is most of it's centered on guys. And I'm looking at who's online. I'm looking here. There's more women here than men, and women need help too. And so there's not enough information out there for women dealing with aphrodisiacs. And sometimes the needs are the same, sometimes the needs are different. And so as we will look at, you know, in the handout's got cool foods, and we'll talk about those a little bit. And there's some historical context because we have sometimes the same issues that people have had through millennia. Sometimes we have unique issues here. So
Can we do a little bit of housekeeping so people online know what to expect?
Sure.
Okay, so you may not be able to see me, but and by the way, I washed and sanitized my hands.
they can see you.
I'm sitting here making you guys all something. I am moderating for tonight, even though I am one of the co-teachers. So anybody online,
Sorry, I'm gonna not show off your face, but show off what you're doing.
anybody online that needs to say anything, you are welcome to unitalk and break in and just say. But if not, I'm moderating the chat. So just put into the chat what you need to say and what you need to ask. And it's on a slight delay, so just expect it to come in a second. I'll thumbs up you if I get it for sure. But please don't be afraid to talk or interrupt, because Bob and I will both never stop talking if you don't interrupt.
This is the truth. And I know for a lot of you, Renee's been the main chatter person. So now you get to hear me babbling coherently.
We're all blessed for that matter. We're lucky that this is the case.
Although I'm quite sure Renee will have stuff. So, you know, one of the things, oh yeah, you got it. One of the things when we talk about
Picking out rose petals.
men and sex, we're usually talking about testosterone and we're talking about blood flow. And not to say we're simple. And it's a little bit easier and it's interesting.
You're super funny.
Yeah. But I work as a clinician, acupuncturist, and an herbalist as well. And it's interesting, my first 5 or 10 years of practice, anxiety was not an issue that I saw very often. And in the last 10 years, that's become a major issue for libido and sexual function for men.
Are you going to make the correlation between things like diet and that?
Maybe.
Do you want me to, can I say stuff about that?
Okay.
Or are you going to go forward with something? You going to stay on there for a second?
Yeah.
So one of the things that we see, and we try to teach our herbal students, and we should think about this like from a food standpoint as well. We try to teach our herbal students that it's not this herb is for that. You just walked in, we had somebody walk in with allergy stuff that was looking for a certain herb. And I said, how is that manifesting? Is it in your eyes? Which, by the way, I'll totally make you something right now if you want me to, if it's going now. Like I'll get up and make you something in a second. So I said, is it more eyes and nose, because one person's allergy is not another person's allergy, so it's not an herb for that. So what happens, and what has happened, and we've seen this, not to mention the fact that I think that men are more brokenhearted than they're allowed to say, that when we have deficiency, when we're not nourished properly and our food has gotten a little bit weaker, our stress has gotten a little bit more, then we tend to develop anxiety. So if we don't feel rock solid, we don't feel rock solid. So if we don't have those minerals in us, so our diet has a lot to do with it, and the extra added stresses that's been causing the immune system to go a little bit kooky has a lot to do with it as well. And so I think it's important to understand that we're malnourished, undercared for, and undertouched in all aspects. We need to support the heart for sure, and that causes of more anxiety, and as a general sense in all communities is undernourishment. You think?
If she's got a pale tongue and
Yeah.
no
Okay.
meds.
All right. But I also have tea.
Okay.
Like I have
Yeah,
kissins. I can
nettles
do.
or something.
Yeah, yeah.
And like 4.
Really?
Yeah.
I feel
Don't
like
skip.
she's a little hot for that.
Yeah, well, and that's it. Like, look at her
She's a little sassy.
tongue. And for women, it's funny, we oftentimes discount some of the issues, and a lot of the women's aphrodisiac herbs focus on sedation and anxiety.
Yeah, but hold on too. I want to also tell you that in class, I teach men and women's in combination because we're exactly the same, just with different ratios. So our innie outie parts are the same, and how they get triggered are similar. Just we're a little bit more complex. So one thing is something, if something's good for a male to say bring blood to a surface, it's the same for a female. It doesn't matter. But
So when we're looking at women, the same issue as testosterone is the sex drive for women as well. So for the same things that we might use for men to increase testosterone, we would use the exact same ones for women. But with women, we also need to think about moisture. And that gets really challenging. And certainly we can, there's all of the oils and creams and salves and things, but how can we do that internally with herbs and ideally do it safely? And so vaginal dryness for either, and there's 1,000 different reasons, anything from hormone imbalances or normal hormone transition into menopause where vaginal dryness is normal. But it can also be like overthinking and anxiety that stops any pleasure to be there. So a lot of times we don't want to look at sedatives. We want to look at things that are either hormone balancing, that can be moistening from the internal by just drinking a tea or eating the herbs or foods and so forth. But sometimes things that stop us from overthinking stuff. A lot of pressure is put on, and men as well, as pressure is put on men and women both for performance. And that takes the fun out of it sometimes. I mean, yes, it's a beautiful thing and all that, but it's also supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be joyous and pleasure and all of that. And so too often our brains get involved in the wrong way and becomes a roadblock into just finding joy and pleasure with sharing your time with somebody else. So we're going to do our best to kind of explore herbs and food and stuff that can help with all of that. So, and I'm going to say, like, if you're like, no, I was really hoping to learn more about, feel free to shout it out. I won't make you write it on a card and turn it in for homework. So yeah, see, I got a handout, and I will totally not follow this handout very well. And I want to talk historically a little bit. One of the struggles, like bathing's a new thing. Like it was considered bad for
dating?
no bathing.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Stinky pits.
Yeah.
That's a new thing. Like it used to be like you had an annual bath. If you bathed once a week, it was actually considered unhealthy.
There was a year holiday where everybody in the village took their bath.
Hallelujah. And so there's an argument that one of the reasons necklaces became a thing was people would put herbs in there to cover up your stank. And depending on where you were in society, what access you had to food, bad breath and poor digestion was not abnormal. And so we find that a lot of the things that are historically considered aphrodisiacs are breath fresheners and digestives. So we have what's called a carminative. So if you were eating you know, if you didn't have refrigeration and maybe you had some smoked or preserved meats, but you know, if you didn't have the extra money for spices, you might have some old meat that's just been sitting in the stew pot for too long, and so you might feel a little bloated and gassy, and that's not hot. So a lot of the stuff that we look at, that we talk about as aphrodisiacs, are digestives, and it's no different now. If I'm bloated and gassy, I'm not looking to have a good time. It's not something that's going to bring about pleasure if literally I have this drum-like belly. So I'm going to say the first half of what we talk about is going to literally be about digestion. And so there's digestives, we talk about bitters, and we talk about carminatives. And probably carminatives, those are things that calm down your belly, are probably the most common in the bunch. And Renee, I'm going to let you hand out food here shortly, if you will.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll be ready.
And so basil's an interesting one, and like, yay, basil. We all know what the heck basil is. By the way, it's really easy to grow down here, and there's different types of basil. The one we talk about the most is, you know, the Italian sweet basil grows really well down here. And it is sweet compared to other basils. And we've got 3 different types of basil here, actually. So
What you want, this guy right here?
that's the sweet basil, and then I have 2 of the holy basils. If you want to do those after, oops. Or actually, you might do the holy basil first because it's a little frightening, and then we can do the sweet basil to cover up the taste. So this is the
That's inviting. It's a little bit of
strongest.
get you to eat it.
This is less strong, and the whole, and then the, oh, and actually, let me show those off to the camera. So if you don't know it,
You guys, I'm eating them. before
2
you.
different types of
I'm not
holy
gonna do
basil.
something nasty. So
And the
whatever he says.
smaller leafed one has gone to flower. Actually, it's gone to seed. And that's true of most plants, but basils in particular. Once it starts to put out its flower stalk, it's going to change the flavor and actually make it a better medicinal herb because of the stronger flavor and the stronger aromatics. Makes not as good a pesto.
Is that the African?
No, those are both, those one's Vana, one's
I like
Vana,
the
one's,
Krishna is my favorite.
yeah.
This is intense.
Wait, what kind is that?
So
Don't
so
eat it all.
holy
You're supposed to give it to
I
them.
am. Holy basil and tulsi comes in different names. And Krishna is usually the one that you guys get from me. Which, by the way, if this is horrifying, I'll make you all tulsi tea. Krishna. So Krishna's the one that is sweeter and a little bit less aggressive. And I think that it would be Rama or Vada.
And one of the things with these are like, we're going to hand you some
They're not bad.
good tasting
They're-
stuff
they're
and some
okay.
crappy tasting stuff. It's totally okay to spit it out.
It tastes green. So what I'm gonna do is, because you said that now, I'm gonna go ahead and bring plates with me so that you can spit on your plate. You don't need to spit this out. This is just like eating basil.
Yeah.
and pepper.
So these are, oops, more people showing up. Ah,
I'll get back to
all
it.
right. I think I got everybody. Man, we got a gang. So when we look at basil, there's some really interesting things. Like, of course, everybody grows basil, especially back in the day. And so I always question it, but I've actually found independent sources that said that put in a window or on a balcony, it was a way to say that a woman was available, or in some locations that it was actually that it was an indication of that it was the red light district, that it was a house of prostitution. And you know, I also think that if you walk up to a house now and say, "Oh, I saw your basil out back," you know, you might get smacked upside the head. So I don't recommend you practice that anymore. But this, all of your basil has the effect of aiding in bloating, helping with digestion. The sweet basil is the most gentle and actually has more of a breath freshener. And like the holy basil, which are the basils from India, which are a little bit more acrid, a little bit sharper flavor to them, those also add in a relaxation aspect without being a sedative. There's a big difference between I'm feeling relaxed, my day's chill, versus I can't keep my eyes open. So the holy basil is a nice relaxing, our running joke is when we talk about holy basil, it's just like everybody needs holy basil. We're all a little wrapped a little too tight.
Yeah, they're beautiful. I would actually use them for spiritual healing because they're
Yes,
sweet and they feel
and for spiritual healing as well. Yeah, but the nice thing is to do an entire pesto, and I hate to say it, I always think, sorry, and
Bob, I might have one, Jeff. You want me to-
what's that? What?
There's a pesto.
Oh, no.
No? Okay.
So one of the things that I always like to think of when we think about Valentine's Day, expressing love to somebody, one of the best ways is through a meal. And sharing food, quiet time, the lit candle, things that we should do every day, not just on, one day out of the year.
This guy?
Yeah. And so how do we make a meal that expresses that, allows to set a tone, let a mood, so that it's not just 15 minutes of fun and done, that we're actually looking at expressing love, and that we start that process long before the clothes come off. And if we start to incorporate some of these medicinal foods and herbs into the meal, and especially, like, I hate to say it, placebo works. It's 40% of all healing, 20 to 40%, depending on what it is, works. So if I say, hey, I'm making this special meal with all of these aphrodisiac herbs, and these things are totally meant to, like, all right, we're halfway there then. And then if it actually does stuff, now we're hitting 50 and 60%. So we're kicking ass. And so Italian basil definitely makes yummier pesto, but we can put in
I was gonna say,
a
my pesto's
third
pretty good.
to half of that can be the holy basil. It adds a little extra kick to it. You can actually use less garlic that way. And even though garlic is considered to be an aphrodisiac in some circles, not everybody really likes that much garlic when you get up close and personal. So I like to use a mix of it. You can also make tea out of basil. Like everybody knows about holy basil tea. Well, you can use Italian basil. It's just a little bit more gentle and has better breath freshening properties to it. And I got here about an hour or so ago, and I was all set to start prepping all these foods.
What you want?
And then I stopped because I was like, you know what? There's a lot of people who probably, are underprivileged humans and never had papaya. And so I figured I'd better show everybody how to open up a papaya. And one way is just crack it over the side of the thing if you don't have a knife. It's a lot easier if you got a knife. Papaya is a and papaya. I should make this so you guys can see it too. I gotta get my cutting board here. Yeah, you can kind of see that. There we go. So with papaya, and I hate to say it, we have like 15 papaya trees at home, and none of them had any that looked right this morning. So I went to the store and got this one. Papaya has a long history. This is papain is a digestive enzyme. So this is very helpful for, and we'll talk about the different parts. You can use it as a
Carminative?
yes, it's a carminative, but
Anti-parasitic?
we can use it for beautification. That'll actually
Hydroxy acid
we can do it. Yes, a peel with it.
In a bad way too. It'll totally burn your skin.
Yeah, and so when we open it up and just cut it in half, you can see all the seeds in there. So the seeds are part of the food and medicine. So the seeds, if you don't know it, are peppery, like literally taste like pepper. They're higher in the digestive enzymes, and you can totally, by the way, grow like a papaya from any one of these seeds. They sprout really easy, no special anything needed. Just throw them on the ground, they start to grow.
Probably encouraging you to keep the seeds and grow.
Yeah, I'm gonna throw some out here, whatever you guys don't eat. So Renee, can you give them so there's all the seeds, and you can dry these seeds. And
This
what
is your table, honey.
huh?
This is your table.
No. Okay. So with the seeds, it's very normal to dry them, put them in your pepper grinder. They're specific for hard to digest meats. So one of the things I always say is, like, if you're going to make that special meal with that special someone, and you don't want like a huge mound of pasta with way too much cream sauce and garlic where you're all walking away from it going, oh my God, I'm so fat. Like you're just going to fall asleep on the couch. Nothing's going to happen. And the goal is that something happens. So we can actually look at, and sorry, I'm going to talk about the history of papaya a little bit. So when Columbus got lost and stumbled across San Salvador Island in the Bahamas, all of the people who were still alive on the boat were literally starving and dying. They've been boiling up shoe leather in order to eat. And so the native people took pity on them and said, hey, y'all need some food. And they saw that they had really bad digestion. So they gave them papaya. It was one of the things that Columbus brought back to Europe that was like this miracle fruit. And so we see this long tropical history of this for good digestion, specific for meat. So if you're doing a fattier meal, you can make a marinade out of the papaya, and you can use, instead of pepper, do a mix of actually black pepper and papaya on there instead of just straight pepper. It will help to digest, break down the meat to make it more tender.
A marinade with the seeds or with the fruit?
You can use the fruit for a marinade
And season
and
it.
then season it with the actual dried seeds.
Never had tried.
I put them right in the.
Yeah, I was gonna say, how many of y'all that seed is new?
Okay, so real quick, you guys, because the question was, how do you dry them? Real easy, paper towel that we dry by the morning. You can put them in your grinder, but I myself use them like peppercorns. So if you had a good roast,
Oh my
either
God, so good.
either a like a picnic pork roast or just just what you'd think like a beef roast, where you would make a mushroom gravy, or if you were vegetarian, a mushroom roast, the way that you would think about it, the gravy, just like peppercorns right in it cooking, would be fine. It would be absolutely okay. So they wouldn't have to be dry in that case. And you always add a little bit of tang for those kind of things anyway. So you're going to be adding like a red wine or a port or something that's going to kind of sauce it up a little bit. So the pieces of papaya are not too sweet and would be fine as well. And that would make a real thick, nice saucy thing without adding something that was gluten in it. So both ways, dry
So
as well as just fresh in there.
I left the peel on here, so just for, don't
Just
eat
a
the
solid.
peel. It doesn't taste that good.
So good.
In Russia, it's good. So there's a muskiness to this.
You're saying don't eat the peel to them?
Yeah, don't eat the peel, just a yummy fruit.
All right.
So papaya brings up something else. There's something a term we use in herbal medicine called doctrine of signatures. This is a uterus.
Yeah, that's why I said, oh,
And the way those seeds lined up were actually reminiscent of this is actually used for fertility. This would be an implanted egg implanting in the uterus. And so this is something that we see a lot of our aphrodisiac foods, and we'll talk about it some later, but hey, guess what? Asparagus is an aphrodisiac food too. So literally anything that's phallic looking is considered an aphrodisiac just because of its look, and things that are reminiscent of women's reproductive parts, same difference. Yeah,
Big, yeah.
big
Yeah,
time.
We
Hell
had
yeah.
a whole big discussion of whether we were arguing whether that was internal vaginal lining or testes.
So,
Like we were.
and I ran out of, so she said something about figs. I ran out of time.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, I ran out of time. I wanted to go get some figs and they didn't have it at Publix. So I got dates, which isn't the same. In Ayurvedic medicine, figs fix everything.
Yeah, figs
And
are
they
the
look
thing.
both like a testicle as well as an ovary. And it's considered one of the best things to work on reproductive health.
Yeah.
So
Super
sorry.
nourishing, bringing
Yeah.
you back to life, breaking
I mean,
your
and if you cut
fast,
one open, there's like a billion little seeds in
spiritually
there.
breaking
So,
your fast,
yeah.
all the seeds, seeding the ground, giving you nourishment.
So yeah, no,
Yeah.
that's 100%. That's the whole idea. And we do that too. Like walnuts, crazy herbalists have been saying walnuts are good for your brain. And they're like, stupid herbalist. Even if it does, it doesn't matter. So somebody spent about $200,000 to figure out that there's an essential fatty acid that's unique to walnuts. It seems to reduce inflammation in your brain. And so for 5,000 years, people knew that, but we had to piss away a bunch of money to figure it out for real. And so this idea of doctrine of signatures, that something looks like something it's good for, it doesn't always hold true, but it sometimes helps us to remember, but it also sometimes brings out some new properties that maybe have been lost over the years.
Okay, real quick, I want you guys to say something for, especially for the people that are sitting here with me. I just put hand sanitizer on my hands, that cinnamon oil, because I'm gonna hand roll your treats. And so I didn't want you to think that I'm like touching my hair, touching things, so that you know, not only did I wash them, like we're trying to be safe the way we're supposed to be, so. Yeah, so I'm just letting you
Even
know.
without COVID, that's just nice.
Yeah, I'm letting you know, it's not hand sanitizer I'm rubbing your treats, it's actually cinnamon oil, and I put cinnamon in here.
And as long as we're doing tropical fruits, I want to talk mangoes real fast. The rest of this is for me. I love papaya. So mangoes, if you don't know it, mangoes grow really well down here. They sell them for way too expensive in the store because most people who have a mango tree, they're please take my mangoes. It's like avocados are just like, for those of you who are up north, it's like zucchini, like you're running over to your neighbor in the middle of the night, dumping a bushel basket on their front steps while they're not looking. So this fruit baffles people. Like they're literally like, do I bite it? Do I peel it? And yes, so growing up, I grew up in the
Sure that
Bahamas.
shows the redneck in
Yeah.
you. Eat it like an apple.
I was gonna say, I grew up in the Bahamas and I won't gum this one. This one's, so we oftentimes end up with this, but like, I didn't have a knife. So
Yes.
you literally, you don't eat the peel, but you can just peel it off. The best thing ever. Oh my God, so good. I was really lucky. I got some ripe ones. So there's a seed in here that this is what's left of the seed. I'm not going to waste this. I'm going to eat all this. So we have to kind of find, here's the stem and here's the bottom of it. And when we cut this, easiest way to make it fancy and not like, so down in the Bahamas, we used to go and steal mangoes off everybody's tree. And one of the things, and they were big, juicy, really fibrous ones, you'd get this crap all up in your teeth and just like slobbering everywhere. There was a rule. You had to be near the water to eat a mango because you have to go swimming afterwards because you're just a sticky, gross mess. And it's one of the reasons this is considered an aphrodisiac food. It's a sticky, gross mess that you're just going to be a mess. So this is all about oral sex. And what we do is we cut down, and you can see I've just cut. This is the seed starting to show. So I just skim by the seed. It gets easier the more you do it. And the next one is horrifying because, like, I don't know, one of these days I'm going to cut my hand. And so I'm scoring the mango into cubes. And then we turn it inside out. Oops, come on, turn it inside out.
I gave your spoon back if you want to.
I got a little butter knife here. Yeah, and so I've now cubed this, and I can cut these off, and you don't have to be a gross mess. I think that's part of the benefits of it, but that's just me.
You've made that clear.
And the ones you buy in the grocery store, they're way too refined. That's the way you're supposed to eat a mango.
Grossing me out.
Almost none of that's going to waste.
Oh,
But
you're making me redo the system. I'm gonna just
sorry.
hand sanitize again. Okay. Oh.
So
Maybe you want me to pass it off?
No, Natalie, you should be able to enjoy yourself. Thank you.
so mangoes, it's funny. A lot of the fruits that we talk about, if we ate way too much fruit, we're going to get, blood sugar issues and everything else. A lot of our fruits have been manipulated to have higher sugar content. A lot of these, like papaya and mangoes, have not been overly manipulated. So although there's no shortage of sugar in them, they haven't. And where's my strawberries? This is a small strawberry. If any of you have ever been up north and like went wild strawberry hunting, a wild strawberry is like this tiny tart sour thing. It's not even sweet. And it's not genetically modified, but we've selectively bred them to be the size of a softball. And the same is true of blueberries.
I'm giving this back to you. I know you'll want to eat it.
You know I'm not wasting any of
I
that.
know.
It'll be chowing down after. So with these, small amounts as a dessert, as an appetizer mixed into a meal allows us to get some of these benefits of both flavor and smell and taste. And part of it is about taste. When well, we'll go down that rabbit hole. There's a number of different flavors that we can associate. And as we tried, we talk about some people have anxiety, some people don't have good blood flow, some people need more moisture. So one of the ways that we approach that in general, when we talk about herbs and how do we choose what herbs and what foods are appropriate for folks, we talk about their flavors and their temperatures. And so as many different flavors as we can incorporate into a meal, the more likely we are to be balanced out. So like you all just tasted the basil, and then we went to this weird musky papaya, and then there's almost a sweet tanginess that comes with that. And like that could be a dessert or an appetizer. It doesn't matter. And we haven't even started the meal yet. And if you don't know it, basil goes really good on fruit. I know that sounds weird, but it's super yummy.
So can I add something to that recipe of stuff? Because you don't have to have a lot of engineering to cook it. Can I say something about that? So the mango or the papaya and then the basil on top. If you just took that and threw it in a blender and took a can of coconut cream, not the coconut milk, but a can of the coconut cream, and you blended it in there, and you put it in the refrigerator for just 5 minutes, like a spoon will stand up in it, like a key lime pie. And you sprinkled some chopped up basil on the top of it to give it like an off-putting note. Like I personally would put something spicy in a crust for that, like something that was like peppery. That would be an amazing pie with there's no guilt to that, and it's vegan. So like if you had somebody that you were cooking for specifically.
And I apologize, I totally forgot to buy pineapple today.
Oh, we need to talk about pineapple.
But that's why I said it. So pineapple. So one of the things that happen, we say like, oh, garlic, if we're talking pesto, we're thinking garlic. Well, garlic gives you garlic breath, and not everybody's a fan. So taste matters. And so we're not just talking about the mouth taste. The semen, vaginal secretions are really important that tastes nice. Mm-hmm. And so pineapple will change the flavor of both the semen and the vaginal secretions.
Nearly immediately.
More so than most fruits. And so needless to say, having that as a lunch, as an appetizer, can have, within a few hours, start to alter the taste. The other thing that
affects that is preservative, fake sweeteners, fake colorings, and fake preservatives, and medications all make us taste, smell, and just be weird. Like just not. I always tease my people who are like every time we see a tongue, someone's like, "Oh, my tongue." I'm like, "You have no idea what we see. It's completely fine. We want to see it." So all my hippie girls that don't want to use deodorant that's got toxins in it, and I'm like, no, you're supposed to smell like a human. Like if you smell like a human, that's fine. So we're not supposed to smell like Xanax, or we're not supposed to smell like red dye number 5. And so that's what we smell like. And so it's an interesting thing because that's what we taste like too. If we smell like that, we taste like that. For sure.
So, and I'll come back to
that one's for me.
So, and I just want to mention some of the other ones on here. So in Chinese medicine, we associate with a particular part of the body with a particular flavor. So we talk reproductive organs, in particular for men. Yeah. Huh?
What flavor is reproductive organs? I don't.
Salty.
Oh, because it's the
Chinese medicine, the lower kidney. Jaw. Yes. So sorry.
Huh. Interesting.
So the flavor salty is considered to be strengthening to your kidneys, which in Chinese medicine we associate with male reproductive, and we think sour and the liver for female reproductive organs.
So that pie, that sour pie.
So in particular, we always hear about oysters are an aphrodisiac, and for many reasons. It's very high in zinc, but it comes from the salt water. It has a salty flavor to it. And so oysters really do have a benefit, but I would say any seafood or seashell, specifically coming from the ocean because of the salty nature of them. So those have a very real
I want
benefit.
to add something to that.
Pete.
So in particular, oysters, especially if you get them from a good area that you know, like if you get them in a place that's clean and fresh and you know they're wonderful. Oysters are restorative and we need a lot of restoration nowadays. That we need a lot of oomph and a lot of restoration, a lot of, they help to synthesize the rest of the vitamins that are going through. And they're recommended when people have some deficiencies.
So it's always funny. And so for men, we see that zinc in particular and there's a number of different nutrients that we need in order for proper testosterone, good blood flow. The zinc being one of those, and seafood, oysters, and clams both are very high in zinc. And that tends to decline in everybody as they age. Excuse me. Choking on my mango.
I did say it. I did say it. It's super inappropriate.
And somebody just put something in the chat if you can check that. So any of those is fine. For women, we said the liver and the flavor sour. And if you like, and everybody's eaten a sour lemon at some point, when you first do it, it goes and you get all puckered up. But the reality is sour actually generates fluids in your mouth. You actually get a little extra saliva going. Well, all your mucous membranes start to put a little extra saliva out. So the flavor sour can actually help with vaginal dryness.
I wish that she was here with us.
Who's that?
Okay, so I'm gonna, Nicole, I'm answering your question and you wrote it out to everyone, so I'm assuming you want me just to say it and answer it out, and it's not a private question. So the comment is, I have seizures only during ovulation. I have reduced them with herbs like patchouli, which I don't fully understand that since it's a digestive herb.
Yeah.
But it is triggering the olfactory system and the whole thing that's going, the limbic and what is going on there. But not fully stopped them, was hoping to get some help with that, also frankincense.
Huh.
I know,
So
that's interesting.
not some Friday soon at the end of the month, we're doing our 2-hour open forum. That would be
Okay.
way more
So-
appropriate for
So
that because
Nicole,
that's involved.
I'm gonna type into you what Bob's talking about, and we want
It's coming up soon.
Yeah, we want you to do this other free class with us, and you will be a topic of conversation.
Yeah, no,
And so it's coming up in just a
we
week
can
or
definitely
so.
come up with a few
So in a
ideas.
second, I will type to you what he's talking about, and we want to get your contact and try to help you out.
So, strawberries are one of the most heavily sprayed fruits out
They
there.
are on the dirty dozen.
So these are organic
You have to get organic strawberries or don't eat them.
and they're sour.
Will you set that there?
Yeah, sure.
'Cause I'm
So,
trying to complete my task. I'll be
The
right
other
back.
part is the color red. We think about it, we give red roses. We don't give white roses or black. Some people do, but there
Yeah,
are
but
many
you
different
give them
kinds
for
of
different
roses.
reasons.
But we typify the heart and love through the color red. And so things that are red and like the strawberries is a classic. We think about it dipped in chocolate and given as a love offering kind of thing. And that's super appropriate because we're going to talk about chocolate in a few minutes.
I got it.
Um,
Make sure we differentiate.
and it's really, strawberries are a fascinating fruit. I believe, I could be wrong, there might be some obscure tropical thing. It's got its seeds on the outside.
Mhm.
Anybody ever thought about that? It's like all those little bumps are seeds. They're not on the inside. All they are the fruits. They're on the inside. And so we kind of look at strawberries as our unveiling.
These are ridiculous.
This is.
Good. Oh my God.
Tell us what you really think.
Yeah.
So
So good.
the idea of strawberries are a naked fruit. And so we reveal our heart and our nakedness by eating them. And if you say that with your loved one over dinner, that makes it extra good. Remember that placebo. But recognize the sourness. Like, no, they're sweet and yummy. No, people dump sugar and honey on strawberries in its, and this is strawberry season. This, Florida, yay, strawberry festival. They have a distinct sourness that most people try to cover up, and we need to embrace its sourness and recognize the uniqueness of all of these flavors that we're enjoying.
Hey, you guys, don't let us peer pressure you into eating it. I'm serious.
And you're allowed to say, no, I want more, gimme.
Yeah, like we try to tell everybody, like nobody knows the etiquette for an herb walk. We're feeding you stuff off the ground, and normal people are like, "What the hell are you doing?" Like, no, just say, get that away from me, dirty hippie, and I'm not eating that. Like, it's completely fine. Like, we're not offended. We're a little autistic enough to not be offended by that. And so, no, you don't have to eat what I give you. Say no, thank you. Like, no.
I want to talk about a couple of others that I won't necessarily feed you. I'm sure we got some more to feed you here in a
No, I
minute.
have so many good.
So pumpkin,
Mhm.
yum, pumpkin pie. But pumpkin seed is specific for male prostate health. And add to that, it's high in zinc. The problem is most of us get pumpkin seeds that are like soaked in really crappy salt, and that just like a little salt's fine. You're better off getting a pumpkin, stripping out the seeds, and any winter squash, like that's all pumpkin is a
Butternut,
winter squash.
acorn.
Those seeds are all the same. They all taste very similar. Roasted with a little salt put on them, rocks. It's a great snack or between meal kind of thing. And people pay good money for that in prostate pills for men. So we don't need to do that. Also, a lot of our pumpkin spices, your cinnamon, your ginger, cardamom, have a variety of different benefits. Cinnamon in particular, which by the way, you can grow down here. It's a large tree, medium, fast grower. A little bit of cinnamon is thought to, here, let me back that up. So in Chinese medicine, everybody's probably heard of yin and yang. We say men are yang, women are yin, which really doesn't mean a whole lot. But for men, that yang nature is fire. It's the fieriness. It can be aggressiveness, and that has a negative thing, but it's the sexual drive. With the yin is the moisture. And so for women, a vaginal moistening, but also for the enough seminal fluid. For the men, all of that is a yin product. So the idea that sometimes, and I hate to say it, seizures are a great example.
I'm typing to her right now.
So seizures are oftentimes heat in the wrong place. Sometimes the heat is up in the upper part of the body. We need it down in the kidneys to express that sexual drive. And so a little bit of cinnamon, we say, guides the fire back down into the kidneys. So sprinkling a little cinnamon on your roasted pumpkin or your pumpkin soup, something like that. Ginger, ooh, I had ginger. Not everybody likes ginger, so.
I could have rolled the balls in this.
Well, it's actually
Right.
fresh ginger, because I love
apologize.
fresh ginger. Fresh ginger is similar, but more about warming the digestion. A lot of people who have poor digestion, bloating, we say their digestive fire's going out. It's funny, all the traditional cultures talk about their digestive fire in some language or another. Agony in Ayurvedic medicine, the stomach chi. And that's very, if you've never like just bit into a chunk of ginger, it's a little intense. So like a little bit goes a long way. It does cleanse the palate and everything else. So adding a little ginger, a little cinnamon, cardamom's also a carminative, helps with the bloating and gas. If you've never tried putting cardamom seeds in your coffee, it's lovely. So like if you're grinding beans or brewing your own coffee, put a little cardamom powder or a little cardamom seed or two into that. It adds a very traditional Middle Eastern flavor to it.
So when I give you guys the treats that I made for you, I rolled them in cacao and rolled them in roses. I am happy because it's extra to bring you some powdered ginger if you want to roll yours in ginger and eat more of it.
Strawberry ginger, we got all of those. So let's talk about cacao, and I'm going to just say, and other foods. Cacao, chocolate,
Well,
is good and bad, and so like, no, let's get into the medical crap. So cacao has many benefits. It is considered heart opening. It is the tradition from Central and South America, from many of the traditional cultures down there. It was so heart opening, allowing you to express love, to get things that screw up your spiritual, emotional heart, to get it out of you and off of you. But from a medical standpoint, it's high in L-arginine. Yay, L-arginine's great. It's a building block for testosterone. It opens up your blood vessels, which can cause your blood pressure to drop and make you more relaxed, but also helps either the clitoris or the penis to fill with blood. So those are good things. The downside is L-arginine can also cause an outbreak of herpes. And so there's a number of foods that do that. So nuts do it, cacao, chocolate does it. Oh, heck, I should have reviewed my list, but there are many foods. Google that. So probably the biggest one, and there's less guys online here. A lot of your weightlifting stuff for bodybuilding
All of it does.
has L-arginine in there, and that will cause herpes outbreaks. There is a ratio between two amino acids. L-arginine is an amino acid. So L-arginine, good for testosterone, blood flow, yada, yada, bad for herpes virus. And for those of you who know way too much, some of our students, the herpes virus family of viruses also includes
Chicken pox and
Oh my-
Epstein-Barr.
That was what I was trying to think of. I wanted you to read my mind on that one. So
Yeah, I
Epstein-Barr
did.
virus and
I
things
got
like
it.
that.
Shot it
The
right.
counterpoint to that is L-lysine. And so we can do supplements of those, but we can, and I hate to say, Google the list of foods that are high in lysine, but ensuring that there is an appropriate higher, if you already have herpes 1 or 2, or there's actually goes up to like 7. If you have a herpes virus, making sure that you have a higher amount of L-lysine in your diet or as a supplement can reduce
Melissa says
outbreaks.
popcorn too.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
For which one?
for the increasing the outbreak.
The L-arginine.
And so, and we look at that differently too. Obviously, you do not want somebody to come give you a fat sloppy kiss when you have a fever blister, basically. But we look at it differently, that if you are having an outbreak, your body's under stress in some way. And so that doesn't make anybody want to take care of anyone else in any way. And so you need to take care of yourself if you're having outbreaks. And so that's something to think about as well. Those foods not helping you in some way, putting you off balance in some way. And so lots of things fall under the virus category, just very normal things like, I don't know, COVID. And so that's something to understand, our body being in stress.
So stay. So pretty. One of the things I always like to talk about, flowers. So the Chinese are crazy. Actually, it's not unique to the Chinese. Rocky Mountain oysters, Manish water, every culture, every traditional culture. Manish water, by the way, is Caribbean. It's I think it's goat balls. Rocky Mountain oysters is
Lamb.
Oh, is that lamb?
Yeah, lamb.
Lamb testicles? Yeah.
I thought
I was gonna say like cattle of some sort.
So
Yeah.
what is the lamb?
No, I forget.
It's on the tip
So-
of the tongue.
A lot of cultures. Oh no, the coleus is making a break for it.
I know
Oh.
they smell like urine.
So a lot of cultures will eat reproductive organs in order to act as an aphrodisiac. Like at the Oceanic, the Asian market up in Tampa.
Or MD.
I don't know if they have it. I've seen it at Oceanic. They've got pig uterus you can buy to make soup out of. Helps with menstrual issues. It helps with
If
fertility.
you have endocrine system
And-
issues, you're supposed to eat organ meat.
And
Yeah,
so,
it
yeah,
makes
so we
sense.
do that, we think, oh, well, that's normal for thyroid, but all of a sudden when it comes to penises and vaginas and things like that, we're like, oh, I ain't going near those things, even though they have secretions and has benefit.
Back in the day, we ate
So-
everything.
So for folks who are vegetarian or creeped out by the idea of boiling up some goat testicles, there's an option.
Oh yeah, eating flowers.
This is the reproductive organ of a plant.
Yeah.
And we hear about things like pine pollen is one molecule off of testosterone, and they sell capsules of that at the health food store for testosterone building. The reality is every flower has both a pistil and a stamen. It is and an ovary.
I
So
have-
this has got everybody's parts
I
in it.
have comments about this. Am I allowed to talk about eating flowers for a minute from Shwar Harani jungle? Okay. So
Wow, that's intense.
I didn't introduce myself. Most of you know I do a lot of work in the Amazon, in the Highlands and the lowlands. And two of the tribes that we work with, the Shwar and the Harani, don't have a written language, and the one only has
And
1,500.
Renee,
left.
they may not be able to hear you online. You're kind of far away. Come closer.
Okay, they only have 1,500 left. So my point is, this isn't like knowledge that is normal and reticent. And so what happens there is if I do good, if I'm correct, and by now they know me, but if I'm correct and I answer the questions correctly and I act like I'm an upstanding citizen, and I'm not just there to steal their culture, they tell me things because they like that I'm coming there and I'm interested, and so it's super fun. So where we are in the Yosemite National Forest, this last time that we were there, there was a Shuar shaman that was helping us, and he was also a field guide for us during the day. And he saw me like talking to a plant, to one of the trees that's kind of on the property but going into the jungle. And he keeps telling me what the name is. My teacher and translator, who is Amazonian, she keeps telling him no, and he keeps like imploring her to explain to me what's going on, and she keeps pushing him away. I'm going, nah, like that, like trying to get me. And so she turns to me and says, "This is the horse tree." And I was, and in English is her fourth language too. So she says it with this beautiful accent that's half Amazonian and half UK. So she's like, this is the horse tree. And I was like, pardon? Yeah. And it's because the flower, when it comes out, it's so, in his words, so intoxicating that it lures you in, and the men will stand under it eating the flowers. And the women know after they stand under there eating the flowers, they can basically one by one retrieve them, as if they were all like sitting around watching a game, drinking beer. And then like slowly the women just the women just come and get the one that's the right one and take them out.
And we didn't talk about the cacao, the cotton.
Yes, we can talk about the right. I will tell you another horrifying story about going down to the Amazon in just a second. Bob's pulling me out on stage once again to do it. And so it was important. So in the middle of the night, like literally in the dark, in the jungle, someone's like trying to wrestle me up, and I'm like, already like freaked out. I'm the one in charge of taking care of the group too, so I'm like hyper vigilant. And it's him, which is also inappropriate because the men and women don't mix there. And he's like pulling me, and I don't know Shuar. I know a little, but not enough. And he pulls me out to the tree, which had through the night bloomed these like wispy, beautiful white. And he's right, it was like intoxicating. Not only was it like, oh, like it's like glowing in the middle of the jungle, and like you wanted to rub it on your face. It was this hairy, wispy, beautiful flowers, but it really was like we were out there like messing with this beautiful tree. And all of a sudden I realized we had been standing there like ding dongs for 10 minutes, like playing with the tree. I'm like, oh, it totally captured me. Like it did it. Like, here it is. It did it. It did it. Oh my gosh. And so the women call it the horse tree because they're luring the men in. It's always luring the men in, and they'll just come and get them when it's the right time. So I thought that was funny because it goes like, it doesn't matter. It's like super cross-cultural. Like you eat the flower and you get what you want. So I thought that was interesting. Now, what Bob's trying to get me to talk about, because we're talking about cacao, we don't have a pod here, do we?
Mm-mm.
We'll have to bring it from home. So when I'm in the jungle, the most important thing we can do is make our 455 hectares look like it's used land. The government will let us keep the land as preserved for the people if it's holding some kind of value. So we can hold an ecological value as long as I have tourists coming, which we don't want tourists coming, so we don't do that. It can hold some kind of monetary value, or the oil people can have it because that's what's good for the country. And so what we have to do, you are like in Brazil, you burn down and put cattle, which cattle, FYI, don't belong in the Amazon. It looks really stupid. They don't understand what to do. It's dumb. And so that's the first thing that doesn't work. And so we have to replant in rows. So it looks like monocropped here. And it just has to be a little. So one of the things we decided to do to be correct, and this is all under the guidelines of the people who live there, like we're not coming in taking over, is to plant cacaos that are becoming extinct. And so we have these Incan and Mayan and beautiful cacaos that are there, and they're natural jungle cacaos that are unbelievable, and nothing that's recognizable as a tree that we would ever, with the cacao pods right on the bark of the tree. It's really interesting. But we plant these ones. So my sole responsibility is to tend the cacaos and go back and say, hi, I've been gone. How are you guys doing? Do you need anything? And to go to these babies that I've taken from here up. So when we speak out in the world with Rocio, I have to help her speak about cacao. It's part of the thing that helps the rainforest be safe down there. It's very important to us. We use it for cancer care, things like that. It's very important to save your soul. Cacao is a thing. So she's up on stage. This is what Bob's having me say, which is the truth. We need to know this. She's up on stage the first time this ever happened. Easily like a keynote type of thing with 150, 200 people. And my job is to tend her. So I'm like sitting on the ground off stage. Like you really can't see me, just my Birkenstock sticking out. And she's here talking. And like I said, English is her fourth language. And she's going on and talking. And she's trying to describe what cacao means to us. And that every part of the cacao can be used to save every part of the body. And it's so important that we know the cacao. What you guys don't know is we have, yeah, well, I have the balls too. We have in cacao pods, there's little bits that look like this. And this is a cacao seed. And around the cacao seed, it's all white and foamy. And then there's the part that you know about that is like fatty cocoa butter. And then there's the actual bitter seed. That's the chocolate that you're eating right now. That's really bitter. And it comes in a pod that looks like a papaya. It's like about this big, usually. Some of them are different shapes, but they're about that big. And in the jungle, all parts are used. So when I bring you guys cacao back from the jungle, when I make you something with actual cacao from the jungle, it's ridiculous and earth-shattering. It's like nothing you've ever tasted. We don't separate the parts. We don't throw anything away. And yes, and they don't throw any. Oh, if there's any allergies to peanuts, that's the only nut butter I had. And there's cinnamon and roses. Other than that, the things shouldn't be.
Is there one of each?
Yes, yes. And so what she has me do, she's explaining this. So those seeds are just like the dates I just showed you, and they're covered with this foamy white that tastes just like marshmallows. Okay. So she's trying to describe, so we're crazy in the jungle. And if I ever get a chance to take any of you, you'll see me do this, where she's talking about cacao in the jungle, and we're like idiot kids, like eating the like chewing on it and eating it like a seed pod in our mouth, where normally we'd throw that away and nobody would know, but we know, and we're like, oh, marshmallow, the monkeys eat it, we all fight for it. And she's trying to describe the different parts. And she's like, with the seed is like the seed that's planting the nation and keeping the earth alive, and it plants the seeds that are on you. And the covering them is on the outside. And this is in front of everybody. She's a keynote speaker. She has 2 PhDs. She says, it's the, and I'm like, potting? Like, I'm like, what? And she goes, you know, the, and she's in front, like I said, she's got 2 PhDs and she's in front of like, right? And she looks at me and says, because I do help her with translation. She's like, Renee, come. And she goes, come. It's the, and I'm like, oh dear God. I'm like, she says it tastes like ejaculation. She's talking about ejaculation. And I'm like this, you know, like I've been ushering her around like a dirty worker all day. And everybody's like kind of like giggling and what. And she's like, what are they laughing at? And she's like, this is what it should taste like, and da-da-da, and that's how you know it's the female seed and the men, and da-da-da. What are they laughing at? And I'm like, that's not what it tastes like. And she goes, she covers the mic and goes, what does it taste like? Yeah, and I'm like, that's we'll talk about it later. And she said, she uncovers the mic and says, what does it taste like? It doesn't taste like this. What are your men eating? What are you feeding them? And it's this thing of like horror. I'll tell you when we go to sleep. It's okay. We'll talk about it. It's thank you. I'm like, so then that's it. Like every time we're somewhere and she's preaching cacao, she's like, come. They don't understand. Come. And it's just the most horrifying thing, to the point where now she's not here, and he's making me tell the story. So I'm like stress sweating right now because I had to say ejaculation in front of everybody. Yeah. And so it's a thing now that if you ever go anywhere with me and learn about curing cancer with cacao, we'll have to talk about and how important it is to us. It's really good though. That's not what it tastes like.
You won't get that here in the States very often, because that comes from the fresh cacao pod.
Yeah.
You only get the cacao bean.
Yeah.
And so this white cottony stuff that it all sits in, the pulp that's around it, you can't get here unless you can find a fresh pod.
And what do they?
All of it. So the white part on the outside, it is the most fought for part. Like the howler monkeys will follow us if they think that we're breaking it open, and they'll go after our seeds and eat it. Yeah. And so far as the leaf cutter ants that you see on National Geographic, they'll come get them and spin them around and clean them and then leave the seeds sitting there. It's a very important fatty part that's full of nourishment. But when you open them and look at it, it's the thing that's the most nurturing and healing. If I had it's like colloidal silver, There's other plants that have that, like cecropias have it on the end of it and they can use it for sunburns. So if I've had somebody in trauma, like if somebody would have fell into the fire or we have those ants down there that will burn you and cause you death if they bite you. If I had something like that happen, it would be nothing for me to break open and start rubbing the white part all over, even the inside of the pod. It's all healing, all nourishing, tissues back together. It's just a yes. Like it's decadent. It's like a tonic, like it feeds you. It clearly feeds you. Again, you watch us, everybody's so excited to make chocolate when we're there because you'd like grind and make chocolate. You watch us literally eat every single bean that they're going to grind and take. Like we'll put it in our mouth, get all the right stuff up and spit the chocolate pod out that we're going to now go to make chocolate with and let it dry and roast it and whatnot with what you guys just ate basically. And so it's a funny thing to watch it happen. We're looking the inside of the pods and we're sitting on the floor like idiots doing this. And you could hear the monkeys because they're like, ooh, cacao broke open. Like they can smell it. They're like all excited. They're like, ooh, what is that? And so it's nourishing and tonifying and feeds you. And it's just a yes. Together, it's ridiculous. Together, it's like eating marshmallows and chocolate. Like if you just took one, the bitter cacao that you taste that's not sweetened, and then that marshmallow, it tastes like marshmallow, but like the best marshmallow you've ever had in your life. If you just bit into it and chewed it all up with the bitter grit inside of this poofy white sticky, it's so good. It's ridiculous. She also compares it to breasts and milk and feeding and things like that. Like it's all parts of the body. Just like we hold sperm, and that's a half of a human. Like that's half of a human. And that's how we tell the health of a man or the health of the woman, the fluids that are coming out. Like we can tell from looking at it and smelling it, whether or not there's ovulation or whether it's thick enough for them to swim or whether it's going to make a viable human. And so that's what happens with these pods. It's like, it's everything. She compares them to the world. This is all you need to have and you would stay alive and you would have all the medicine that you needed. And when we do trauma healing, if we do like healing the healers, or we have a thing where we have elders that are healers, that we use the cacao to paint them in the scars or paint them in the cancer or paint them in the space to help with their cancer tumors. And yeah, so the cacao basically is everything. It's the world. It's a generation of what a perfect being is. So,
And it's
forgot all about that.
yeah.
How do you forget something?
Oh,
like that?
and the chocolate I just passed around, I won't say it was the finest chocolate ever, but it was like 95% cacao. And so, if there's not a lot of benefit to like a Milky Way. So the higher the cacao content, the closer it is to that pure cacao bean, the more benefit it has, both the bitter stimulating the digestion, but when we start to talk about that heart opening
The
idea,
theobromine can literally make you see colors and literally make you giddy and high and giggly. And it's doing that to your heart as well. Our heart has bitter receptors. Did you already talk about that?
Nope.
Okay, go right ahead.
no, go ahead.
Well, the heart has bitter taste receptors on it. And so it drives right to that area, repairs tissue that's been damaged, and then makes it safe and sturdy and bursts it open to receive more oxygen. And when something like that happens, you're saying yes to life. And if you look at any of our medications that we're using for things like erection, we're driving oxygenated blood to the right areas where it's been incapacitated, usually because your heart's broken, like in some way, like you have some issue with cardiovascular or your heart's actually broken. And so it's an interesting concept to see that there's no explanation of that with me when I'm down there other than forestry. But they'd shove it right in my hand and say, without them knowing, theobromine. Yeah.
So, and like, yeah, we're halfway through. Let's talk about Herbal. Because there's good ones, bad ones, and ones nobody's ever heard of. And for those of you online, if you check your email, you should have gotten the handout. And I'm going to bounce all over the place. I'm not going to follow I'm just kind of glancing down at what I'm like, oh, let's talk about that. And if you didn't get it, just shoot an email and Trisha will get it out to you tomorrow morning. So let me start with the most famous one and the most dangerous one. So yohimbe is a tree bark from Africa. It was a prescription drug at some point. It was yohimbine HCl. And it was specifically used for diabetic impotence. Unfortunately, diabetes causes inflammation and it hits all the places where blood flow is an issue. And so we say, oh, it affects the eyes, the heart, the feet, slows healing because once it inflames, the blood's not able to get to the area. And that works for the penis as well. And it works. It works really well. It drives blood to both the clitoris as well as the penis. And the problem is, it also causes anxiety, heart palpitation, and all kinds of really bad stuff. And it contraindicated with just about every medication I could think of. It can cause your blood pressure to go up, all kinds of really bad stuff. It is the one herb I do not recommend, and it's the one you'll read the most about. It's really dangerous. Now that I've said that, I'm going to say it will also, and there's an idea in herbal medicine where we can use things to guide and go in a particular direction. And, you know, we hear that like, oh, ginger helps with nausea. So if energy's going that way, puking, we eat some ginger and it goes that way. And in the case of yohimbe, it drives blood to the penis and the clitoris. So if you take just the smallest amount and you use other safer herbs, it does a really good job. Be super cautious though. A little bit too much is way too much.
I could have made it with the stamina formula. I could have put that in our
Yeah.
balls. Okay, so real quick, anybody who got to eat the nut butter balls, were they okay?
Oh,
Yeah. So, and Natalie knows because she's eaten my food. So I hide medicine, like I'm the queen of hiding medicine. And so those had tons of medicine in them that were horrifying. But we're about to talk about something, including like what Bob's talking about, that we totally, like I got some more right here. We could totally roll some in there if somebody wants.
So there was something in there that
There was
typically-
3 things.
or things
Damiana,
that-
Suma, yeah,
that we
Damiana.
wouldn't be able to, wouldn't like them if they were by
Oh no, I'll
themselves.
totally pass it to you. It's
Oh,
like
I
eating
got
bitter powdered.
I was going to say
oatmeal.
maca tastes good. We'll pass some maca around here in a minute. That's malted milk. Some of the other ones,
Yeah.
less yummy.
Eating the Damiana is like eating perfume.
So it's really, you know, we always should think about, like, if you Googled aphrodisiac herbs for men or for women, there's going to be a list this long. You're like, what do I do with all of these? There's a unique application to each one of them and what they're best for. Let's talk about ginseng. And I'm going to write stuff. So
All right.
if you want to type stuff, do it over here. So we talk about ginseng. There's American ginseng, Chinese, which is the same as Korean. Yeah. And
Why do they call it Korean, Bob?
the Koreans think theirs is the best. The Chinese think theirs are the best.
But they're exactly
It's
the
the same plant. Yeah.
That's why it's
One grows in Korea, one grows in China. American ginseng, Chinese. There's, I'm going to write it Siberian. This is not a true ginseng. This is a plant that grows in Siberia that is an adaptogen. Oh, let's write.
It's good. Printing.
Yeah.
Can I put right saying?
Sang. And this is
Taisi Shen. That I cannot spell.
I'll start with these. So everybody's like, ginseng's an aphrodisiac. It's not.
So,
It-
clarify.
It is a great herb that has a variety of uses. And for somebody who is debilitated, i.e. aging, fatigue, their candle went out, then it's good. It's a nourishing herb. And so whereas yohimbe, no, blood to penis, blood to clitoris, it works.
Be more
This will
direct.
do nothing for a 20-year-old.
Okay, so hold up, because we've recently had a in between 20 and 30-year-old that's having problems.
Mhm.
So that's not necessarily true. So let's kind of go back to the original statement of we're malnourished, we're touch deficient, we're stressed the frick out. So yeah, all of a sudden, where all you need to do is sleep and your body only wants to devote energy to rest and nourishment, all of a sudden you have extra fuel, it can devote itself to something else, your mind perks up, you know, like you start to seek it out.
There's all of these and many other herbs fall into a category called adaptogens. And these herbs help you adapt to stress.
That is for damn sure. And that it does.
And so they're all nourishing, and yet they have a slightly different property. So somebody who's exhausted, they've been working, the 18-hour days and 8 days a week, and they're just like, I can't sleep, I can't do anything. They're just like, then this will build them up and give them that ability to rest and relax and reproduce. So American ginseng is slightly cooling and moistening. And you'll read like, oh, it's good for menopause. This ginseng, they're all slightly different. American ginseng, it wouldn't be my first choice, but it's an option, would be the only one I would use. The other ones will not be helpful for menopause.
You'll make it worse.
Yeah, so Korean or Chinese ginseng is the hottest of all three of these, or all four of these, excuse me. So American ginseng, cool. So somebody who like hot flashing a little bit, and men and women both hot flash, by the way, just for different reasons. Actually, for mostly the same reason. Chinese ginseng is for the person who's really cold all the time.
What about the Siberian?
Siberian ginseng is a Eleutherococcus. It's not a true ginseng. It's very drying. And so for somebody who's a phlegm monster, that's great. So somebody who's always a little heavy, maybe loose stools, dripping nose, doing that all the time, the Siberian ginseng is better. Prince Seng, that's not a very well-known one. This is called Japanese ginseng, and it's a relative of the ginsengs. The Chinese name for it is Tai Shen. Especially if somebody has, it's moistening, slightly cool, and has a benefit also for the lungs. And so we look at it for somebody who's really short of breath, COPD, dry lungs. This one is very safe. I would say these are all fairly safe if you get them in the ballpark, the energetics, but this one, not many people know about the Tai Shen. I'm going to bounce around a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
You right there? Is there
Oh,
a
yeah,
razor?
there it is.
Okay.
So there's some herbs that come from South America that are similar. And I'm going to say every continent, every country probably has their aphrodisiac herbs. It's a thing. Suma, I would say, is the equivalent of the Chinese ginseng, and maybe a little better. And if you look at the way they talk about Suma, they say elderly.
I put Suma in your stuff.
Yeah. So Suma is for infertility for women, especially as they start to get, a little older. Reproductive ability is going down a little bit for men, where erectile function's going down. Achy, arthritis. It's this person who's just like everything hurts, the low back. Suma is considered just to, straighten people up. And it's a small tree, if I remember right. Oh, I almost forgot Catawba.
Does it grow here?
I think it would.
I do too.
Uh,
I was gonna argue with you. I think it would.
so,
In all reality, Natalie, these are usually tropical things.
yeah, they all come from the Amazon.
It's phonetic, BA, right?
Yep.
No. Oh, it
Yeah.
is wa. Wa.
Yeah.
You're right. Wa. Yeah.
I had it on here. It's on here somewhere. There we are. I know I'm doing that wrong. Catawba
No, it was same deal though. Same sound.
is very similar to Suma, but it's hotter. So think it's the hottest of the three, and a little bit more stimulating, that you have to watch out for insomnia with that.
It was good with the wine. Balances it out.
That's right.
You think
Anybody knows which ones grow here? Where's our Florida excitement
I
herbs?
can't.
What does?
Catawba.
Mm-hmm.
Some Catawba grow on the eastern seaboard somewhere.
Really? It's not native here.
I've seen it grow. Even I think it was in Carol.
Oh no, different, same name, different
Oh,
plant.
yeah, there you go.
So Anybody know? Oops,
Does
sorry.
anybody know who that is, what that is?
This is a invasive plant, and I don't know if it's native
We'll
or
teach you how
not.
to cast a spell with it.
Yeah. So this is daughter seed.
It's for sex and love, so.
This is also a Chinese herb. It grows all over. It's a tropic, subtropic, parasitic vine. It's a Chinese herb. So we use the seed in Chinese medicine. Down in the Bahamas, we call this love vine. Guess what it's for? So there are pros and cons to this. And literally down in the Bahamas, this grows over the tops of pine trees. It's a blanket that covers stuff. You go down to, oh, don't ever harvest plants in Boyd Hill. That's illegal to take a plant from a park. So this literally, I pulled this off our tree out here. There's a little bit of it growing and I didn't plant it. It's a vine. It is parasitic. And so if this is growing off of poison ivy, you might not want to use it. I don't know what juice it's getting out of that poison ivy, but I don't think I want to ingest it. So the Bahamians use the vine, the Chinese use the seed. So to me, that means you can use all parts, and they use it for the same reason.
And I'm gonna tell you, I'm looking at where the cadabra grows, Brazil,
Yeah, that's what I
same
thought.
latitudes in Austria.
Yeah, so it should grow, but I don't think it's definitely not native.
It's on rain tree as well,
There may be, yeah, I mean,
I'm saying.
yeah,
That's good, yeah.
but it's that said, it's I think it'll grow here. And there's when you use common names, which I shouldn't be doing, I don't remember the Latin name. There's probably another plant that's got a similar name to it.
Hey, Brooke put in palmetto probably because of the seed, and that's not, I don't know that that's entirely wrong because of
Wait, what?
like saw palmetto seed when you were asking, you know, any Florida plants.
Oh,
that-
yes. Yeah,
Yeah,
we're going to
so-
talk about that.
Yeah, so that's great.
This is the one
Can
that
I-
nobody
Can I
knows.
say a daughter thing?
Yeah, yeah.
So I said the joke about I could cast a spell with it. So traditionally, so I'm some of my family's been in Florida since the late 1600s. All of them have been here since the 1800s. And traditionally, the folks on the East Coast, think island,
There's
Bahamas,
the seed.
tropical, West African, anybody coming over would have taught me to use daughter to tie someone up. So if I needed to if somebody was straying, or if I needed to make sure somebody was attached to me, I would tie our hair together and throw it over my back. Now, another thing you would do is you would tie a bundle together after saying a certain thing and throw it over onto a tree branch. And in the morning, if you got up and it hadn't fallen off, then you were like going to be bound together as appropriate, like something had happened. And then another thing you do with it, but my point is all the same thing, like the folk. Another thing you would do with it is basically tie up a lady's underwear is what it translates to. Yeah, to make sure that she's yours and that she's not going to stray. So I think that's funny that here we are, like in Chinese culture, using it for something that's gonna like kind of tie somebody up as well, for sure.
And it's funny, it's very hard to find that for sale in the Western herbal realm. And it's a weed. It's certain times of the year when it first grows, it's green. And then it turns this golden yellow color, and so you'll see just this blanket of yellow.
So right now, well, it doesn't. If it's in a place that it is not invasive, where it's naturalized or where it belongs, it dies back and comes back and dies back and comes back. It's something I've learned, especially with the jungle, is that if we don't screw it up, it self-regulates.
Yeah.
And so where we screwed it up, it does its job. But right now at DeSoto, it's just a field of orange. It
Yeah.
almost looks like the inside of
Oh yeah, it hasn't turned yellow yet.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
still
it's
orange. It's a
right
transition.
orange. And so it's a good thing to see because you're like, what is that? And
Yeah.
unless you got out of your car.
And it'll grow over bushes, over trees, along the grass. It's all over the place.
And it's a problem there for sure.
So let's talk about saw palmetto as long as it came up. So saw palmetto is, yes, it's very specific to Florida. It is considered a good for male prostate health, but it is for sure considered an aphrodisiac. And I didn't bring any because it tastes like crap. If you can imagine rotten fermented soap, if you ate that, that's the best description. So that's good medicine. And it's funny. So when we see people in the clinic, whether it's student clinic or during the day, I always bring all your supplements and we do a little quality control stuff. And so I don't know every brand. I know some of them. And so the best way to tell whether your supplement's any good is to take a capsule out, open it up and taste it. And if you go and taste saw palmetto out of a capsule that guys are using for prostate health, but we'll talk more about that in a second. If you taste it and you're like, ooh,
no
it's
good.
crap.
Yeah.
Throw it away. It's garbage. It used to be you could go harvest saw palmetto. You now need a permit on anything other than your own private land, as far as I know, because it's been over harvested, because it's such an effective herb. What it does, and it's not unique to men, women can use it as well, and in specific cases primarily. It's not that it increases testosterone, although there's some question that it may have some building blocks for testosterone. It actually helps with the clearance of the used up testosterone, the dehydrotestosterone. So we got free testosterone, then we got testosterone that's starting to be used by the body. If we don't process it out, then the prostate swells. We also get baldness, hair thinning, and the time women could use that at any time, but it's very specific for PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome, because one of the symptoms of PCOS is an elevated testosterone. We'll oftentimes get extra, some of those male sexual characteristics, extra body hair, sometimes weight gain. And so by utilizing saw palmetto, we can actually reduce the women's body doesn't process it out quite as well. And we can reduce some of that hair thinning and some of the other problems that come with the PCOS.
Is it the berry?
Yes, the berry. Yeah, usually they're green, and just as they're starting to turn black,
I think I have some.
they're ripe. They're
They're
gross.
disgusting.
And actually, I was going to say it's the berry, but then you got to break the nut out of it. So there's a
Use the nut or the shell
the
around?
nut is the actual good shit.
Ah.
Yeah, and it's gross. Yeah,
It's rancid.
yeah.
That's how you know you
At
got
the
the
very
right thing.
at the very least. What other fun ones do we have here in Florida? So somewhere on here is goji berries, and this is a famous one in the Chinese. And it's so funny. So its proper name in Chinese medicine is gochitsa. And we call them goji berries here. It's the little red berries. I remember when I was at acupuncture school, and there was a guy in my class who was from Macau, and we started learning about him, and they were passing the goji berry. He got so excited. He was like, "Oh, I'm going to put these in vodka, and they're going to swell up, and this is like the most potent aphrodisiac in the whole world." And he's like, "All you got to do is eat one of those berries." I'm like, "You sure it's not the vodka?" Because I've eaten a lot of goji berries. They're in every little protein bar. They're not all that. So it is it is a lycium berry, and we have a native lycium bush that grows here and grows very well. It's salt tolerant. We'll find it along coastal communities a lot of times in salt marshes, and we call them Christmas tree berries here. And they have, and I'm going to say they have some benefits. If you eat them consistently, I don't think you need the vodka unless you need a little disinhibiting going on. But eating them seems to help with some building blocks for testosterone, and they're considered moistening. So they're very appropriate for both men and women, but not really driving blood the way we talk about some of these herbs. So it is more about debilitated and nourishing folks as we go. Yeah, don't worry about it. Nobody wants to taste that crap.
No, I like it.
There's one other one that, we can't talk about sex stuff unless we talk about sex health. And spa means all the different species. It doesn't matter.
This is a good one.
And I should have picked one before I came out here.
Is there some out
This-
there?
It's just hard to find. Do you want to talk about it? Because I know where it is.
Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay.
So I was talking about Smilax. So one thing I want to point out about the Smilax is that its island name, like you go down to any island, to go back to where Bob was raised up, and you want Smilax, you need to ask for sarsaparilla. But you go up to the Appalachians, which is one of the places I was raised up in, you ask for sarsaparilla, you're going to get a tree. So greenbrier smilax is this Latin name, so you need to ask for smilax and make sure that that's what you're getting. It's one of the plants that has a strong doctrine of signature, and no matter what culture uses it, so all cultures ask for support from this plant. So anybody in North America, any place that it grows, any country that it grows in, a part of it is used. It's one of our doctrine of signatures that Bob was talking about earlier, where it looks both like a uterus, like the shape of it, how it comes down, and it also, depending on which time of year you're getting it, kind of looks like a penis and testes too. It's really interesting. And we would describe it as being used or supporting anything in the lower jowl of male or female. What it does, though, is it has a great steroidal effect. So it reduces inflammation and keeps things flowing. It also draws to that area. But then secondarily, I was taught it as food because I was taught to take care of myself off the land. And the tips of it not only get to be about the size of the asparagus that are up here, but taste just like asparagus. They're spectacular. We eat them all the time. And I always know when the students have come by because they're like the tops will be trimmed off the pathway, like at Boyd Hill for real. And Natalie's laughing because she's one of them that has done it. And so like, I'll know that one of them has come by and eaten everybody. And it's like, oh, what is that? Because we're
Sorry.
crazy.
Doctrine of signatures.
Because we need Bob to stand in front of the camera with it hold in front of his hoo-ha, right?
That's how I
Yeah.
remember it.
And so, and I just was telling,
You
I just was
can
describing
take your
that.
choice, yeah. But
Put it at the camera, show it to the camera, not your hoo-ha, the plant.
I saw.
Yeah, and so it's an interesting thing to think about. So it has a steroidal effect, reduces inflammation. In a strong dose, we would actually use it for something like a hot damp infection, like a UTI, or if you had discharge of prostate that was not supposed to be there, anything that felt painful and inflamed. But the point is that it keeps everything moving and it's food. Like again, I was taught it as food. So it just depends on what part you're using. In Chinese medicine, we'd use more of what would be considered the food reservoir, like the bulb that was underneath, and it would whisk away extra fluid that was inside. But again, drawing to the area the right fluids and the right blood. It would go into our formulas that we would need for any kind of health that was like below the belly button. And so it's just something that would be a heavy hitter in that case. I don't know the Fuling is a Chinese name?
Tufuling.
Tufuling.
Sorry. Thank you.
Tufuling.
So did you say that was related to sarsaparilla or?
So that the fight, okay, thank you. So the fight is no, like the sarsaparilla that we know that like tastes like root beer, that sarsaparilla, even though this tastes like there's sarsaparilla.
Some people call it
So
sarsaparilla.
sassafras gets confused with it too. So no, you go up into the Appalachians, we're looking at a tree.
There's 3 plants that are
a
called
bush.
sarsaparilla.
And so you have to be careful. Now, the irony of all of it is those reduce inflammation too. And so it's this fight about like where, but you can't go to any of the islands and ask for smilax. You have to ask for sarsaparilla. And so it's an interesting thing because we would also make a drink out. It does taste root beery, the root of it. And so one is a climbing vine that's the scourge of everybody in Florida that just gets all over everything and has thorns sometimes. And the other one is a tree that smells like root beer and like sassafras. Yeah, and so it's important to know a little tiny bit of Latin that you always ask for smilax instead. Even though you'd have really good, like it would taste good to use it. And it would work somewhat because it also is very energetic and moves things that are stuck and has a steroidal effect. So even though it's clearly not the same plant.
So there's a couple of other herbs I want to talk about. Make sure we cover them.
These are the kind of nerdy fights we have at Herbal.
Oh God, yes. We spend hours and hours
Discussing
going
the
back with a
validity
bunch
of
of
one
people.
calling it
Yeah.
something ethno-body.
Yeah.
And so it's so ridiculous.
So let's talk about passion flower.
Oh,
Passiflora
Passion flower.
incarnata.
yeah, I put a little passion flower in this.
Oh, nice. So passion flower has nothing to do with sex. It has nothing to do with passion. It's the passion of Christ. It looks like the crown of thorns. That's what the flower looks like. So we use all parts, the leaf and the flower. The flower's pretty.
Aren't you going to contradict yourself by saying, yes, use it for sex?
Yeah, I'm getting there. So what it's best for, because it does belong in certain aphrodisiac formulas. For folks who can't be present, like their brain is either off in 6 different places, or they're like, oh my God, am I doing it right? That those folks, it's for that circular thinking. And it is a cause of impotence for both men and women. So orgasm will not happen if your brain isn't sitting there just having a good time. one of the, sorry, I'm giving away all my best class stories here. So one of, and it's harder now because they don't have the lick on stamps, but there was the stamp test. And Renee's laughing because she knows what I'm going to say.
The lick on stamp.
So it is not uncommon, and I hate to say it, I think I've had 22-year-olds coming to me for impotence.
Yeah.
And like, no 22-year-old guy should have
Have
impotence
impotence.
unless there's been physical damage.
Yeah.
And it's anxiety usually, and I see at all ages, and I think it happens for men as they age as well, because shit happens. That they
Stress
got
of the
dehydrated,
business.
they got stressed out, they
Married
had
for
one
20
drink
years and
too
now
long,
God.
and
Yeah.
all of a sudden they can't perform, and now they're afraid the next time it's not going to work again. And
Oh,
then
yeah.
all of a sudden that's the thinking. And so the way to tell, is it a low testosterone? Is it diabetes? Is it, is there a reason why my blood is not flowing to the penis? Is it is normal to have an erection at night for guys. And so the stamp test is when the penis is flaccid, you put the stamps around it. And then in the morning you wake up and the stamps are broken open, then your junk works fine. It's your brain that's in the way. And that's when you use the passion flower. The other way and I hate to say it, this is the way I ask my patients this is, and it's not a polite way to say it, but I always say, does it work while you're by yourself? In other words, if you're masturbating, then you don't worry about if you're doing it right or not, because you're doing it right for yourself. And it allows people to admit to, yeah, it works fine then, that we know it's more an anxiety kind of state. Because most people it works fine as long as all the parts are there, then it works fine when they're by themselves. We get with a partner and all of a sudden we have anxiety, and then all of a sudden it doesn't work. So we can ask that more politely that way, rather, what is it? 98% of all men masturbate, and all the people who are saying that don't, or that 2%. So, and for women, it was for a long time not socially acceptable, although it happened. And so I think women are just fessing up to it now. I don't know if the number's gotten quite as high, but there's still enough societal norms that probably keep people from having fun by themselves as well.
But it's a good way to determine what is the best plan for you.
And so passion flower for folks who are having a hard time relaxing and being present in the moment, it's very appropriate. Passion fruit, and you can get, so there's different species. Passion flower incarnata is the herb of commerce and is the best one. It produces fruit, but it's harder to get. If any of you have like, oh my God, I'm giving away my passion fruit, I've got like hundreds of them. That's a different species. That's Passiflora edibilis. The fruit of that, which is sweet and sour, so good for women especially, has the same property, but a little bit more gentle. So that can be dessert. Works really good.
The description that I gave you earlier with making the coconut dessert with passion flower,
would be
'cause I
really
made that
good with
for
that,
vegan cooking. I do a cooking class with the passion flower. It's ridiculous. Like, it's just crazy good. It's so sour and creamy and lovely and just so freaking good.
Passion fruit.
Yeah, the passion fruit.
And really, incarnata is native here. Edibilis is not native to Florida, but grows like gangbusters.
I'm super happy.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I got confused with the difference. So there's passion fruit,
Yes.
like the kind that you would get like the market.
Yeah.
That is good.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so
And then the
passion
leaf
flora
and flower.
of incarnata. So incarnata is the one that's got a really beautiful purple flower with some white attached to it. The edibilis can be several different colors, including white and pink. And the edibilis has like hand-sized fruit in it. And it's not the herb of commerce for medicine because it's not super strong. And we use this medicine for really intense things like muscle pain and issues about anxiety and worry. And so we want the strongest one possible for the medicine. But what Bob's saying is right. Like, I have a lot of jungle stories, and when we're in the highlands and the jungles, in between we stay with nuns, and the nuns take care of us and they know who we are. And I am always in boots and dirty clothes and loud and American in all aspects and trying not to be. They chase me with it. They make me juice in the morning. It's super funny.
Because it can be sedative if you do a lot.
So they're like, yeah. So they're running after me
Chill
with
her
the
out.
passion fruit. They are. And they always like Sister Blanca's like, oh, it's you. Like when she's like, oh, and so out that night at dinner, it's like a picture. She's like, oh, when I finally arrive, they chase me with it because it's tile floor and this beautiful monastery and sweet and kind and quiet, what you'd expect. And it's just so my point is it works enough for the nuns to know to chase me with it. And so the fruit is magnificent. It will not make you sedated. It will just chill everything out. It stops circular thinking. So it's important.
So let's talk some specific women's stuff, all of these are good for dudes. So shatavari, which is a type of asparagus root, like, yay, we all eat yummy asparagus. The stuff under the ground is great medicine. It is not to say guys can't eat it. Like there's definitely appropriateness, not just as a sexual tonic, but for a tonic in general. But the shatavari is specifically a woman's herb. It's considered to be slightly cooling and moistening,
I have a question about that for you.
and helps to balance hormones.
Do you think that that's a woman's herb?
Yes, I give it to dudes for other reasons. So it cooling and moistening,
Okay, you do understand.
it's specific to
just
the
said.
liver.
You think that's a woman's herb. So you know that those two fat books right there
Yeah,
and
I
that
give
one
it
right
crap.
there.
yeah, it's an adaptogen for everybody, whatever. So it's not specific for that, but when we look at shatavari, I consider that the same as the Chinese herb tianmendong, which is definitely ubiquitous. We use it to cool and nourish the liver.
All right, I'm just respectfully disagreeing with everything
That's
that you
okay.
just said that it's for everybody,
Yes,
that it can be used for everybody. It is not specifically for women.
it
for
is
women's
much
hormones.
more. Yeah, you're not going to grow breasts in a guy if you give it to him, but it is an adaptogen that is geared towards women because of the moistening nature of it. You can disagree with me if you want.
Damn straight. Yeah, so.
What other there's one, and I thought we had some, but we were out at the clinic.
What?
Spilanthes.
Do we not have any out?
I don't think we had any there. I don't think we have any in a jar to
Oh, I
hand
think
around.
it's out there.
Yeah, but we don't have
No,
enough to
it's
hand
not
around.
enough.
Mm. So spilanthes is also known as toothache
I
plant.
probably have it.
If you got it dried, that would
Yes,
work.
yeah, okay.
So spilanthes is fast. You can grow it here. It's not native, but you can grow it here fine. It's an annual.
Here, you tell about the badge.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we know it's very numbing, and it's a solilogogue. Say that 3 times fast. And don't ask me to spell it because I don't know how. Solilogogues generate fluids in your mouth, in your nose, wherever. If you eat it, not only will you get a weird numbing pop rocks kind of thing in your mouth, you will start to salivate and your nose will start to run. And that's all we knew it to do. And then we started to work with it, and we were getting reports that it was also creating all of your mucous membranes to start to increase moisture. So it helped to generate vaginal fluids as well. And vaginal dryness is a major issue, especially as women are approaching menopause. So we got asked by an acupuncturist up north who was doing vaginal steams, yoni steams, or a couple of different names for it. And she didn't like the one she was buying from just who are the distributors, and asked if we could create one. And it's horrifying. If you want a good chuckle, there's a YouTube video out there from about 20 years ago that I did. I was doing expertvillage.com. We were producing hundreds of videos, and so they wanted a vaginal steam. And I was like, fine, I'll give you the poor man's vaginal steam. We were crying. We were laughing so hard because literally we just took some herbs with some hot water, threw it in the toilet, threw a towel over and said, there you go. And you can see the director drop trowel and in the bathroom stall. It was sad thing. So now they have fancy thrones, and it's this beautiful, loving experience. So we were asked to produce a number of, I think we ended up doing 7 different yoni steams. And then she had a very large gay clientele, and she wanted a butt steam too. I think we came up with a better name than that, but but the reality was, we were like, how do we increase, vaginal secretions in a steam? And so I came up with this spilanthes. And spelled up there. We'll type it in a minute. And so we were like, well, how do we know if it works? And I mean, we could have tried it, but so we basically made a really strong cup of tea of it, went around to all of our staff and said, smell this. And all their noses started running. We're like, nope, that's gonna work everywhere. So you can use it as a yoni steam. You can drink it as a tea. No such luck, huh? Oh, you guys can go by the clinic later.
Everybody always wants to play it, like play with it with
Yeah.
the party trick.
And what I always say, it's like you're not having an allergic reaction and you get this weird tingly whatever. But it is one of my favorites, because of its entertainment value. And it's all, I won't say instantaneous, but within minutes will increase vaginal secretions. Like no ands, ifs, or buts. It
That's
will
so
without fail.
interesting.
Yeah.
When somebody's ordering 10 pounds of anything, you know it works.
Yeah.
So it works that way as a yoni steam?
Yeah,
and
so we
other
didn't
ways-
need
or
to-
as a tea.
or
So
as-
yeah, so what we were asked, and I know I heard Bob explain it, but what she said was, so it's a set of doctors in the DC area that now want this, and they said we need a detox, and I'm like,
Oh, yeah,
how do
that's
you
right, it was a
your
detox.
fat? Like, what does that mean?
By the way, that is a self-cleaning organ. It does not need assistance.
Right, like look at your body works right. You don't need to do these things. And so we literally both were like, and sat like quiet. Like, what does that mean? And so we started thinking about, I guess they need an outward motion. What would make that happen? And we're like looking at each other, like looking at the wall of herbs, and did exactly what Bob said. Like just all we said was smell this, and immediately the nose ran on the ones with the splanchnies were like solid, like this is happening. So it has this out motion to be like, okay, like well that would work. Yeah, totally 100%. Not only that, we've made suppositories with them. And have you eaten Stellanthes because you have exposure to?
I have tasted it.
It's got the tingle in it that you get from like or from kava, and so it has that same pop rocks type of tingle, and it's like, whoa, all right, then there's that going on, and so yeah, it works. It's a thing. Yeah. Anybody eats a formula? Let me know.
So, oh God, it's 8:20. All right.
Yeah.
I think we were just going to 8:30 or something.
Yeah,
weren't we?
8:30.
Okay, so I want to hit some highlights on here. So we didn't do Damiana.
Yeah, do Damiana because they
Okay.
ate it. Mhm.
Okay. Oh yeah. So Damiana is technically from Central America and Mexico. There is a different species of it that grows in Cuba, grows here. It's considered an invasive plant. It's got pretty yellow flowers.
Spectacular. It's always if you're into it.
It's self-seeding, so
Love
that's
it.
the invasiveness
Mhm.
part of it. It is not as strong as the true Damiana,
Totally.
but damn near. And Damiana is, I'm going to say again, although very appropriate for men to use it, it is geared more towards women and hormone balancing. We all have the same 3 primary sex hormones, and so it's just slightly different ratios. It has a relaxing effect to it. It can be used as a tea. It does well in a steam. People smoke it. Smoking's bad for you. Don't do it.
We don't want anything
People get
hot
buzzed off of
burning
it.
your lungs. We don't mind you getting high. We love that, but
Yeah.
just don't burn your lungs.
Yeah. So don't smoke.
Yeah, it's
don't,
one of the number one things in the smoking
Yeah.
blends. Is
Yeah.
Damiana. Yeah.
the smoking oak leaves is bad for you. Hot smoke. Ask the firefighters.
Yeah.
Generally bad idea. So that one is an easy one to grow. It's very versatile. It's used both for entertainment as well as hormonal issues.
Entertainment.
Yeah,
Is that what
catch a little
after I
buzz
ate
off of
the
it.
ball, I just saw like milky white all in the air for a second. I was like,
You know what? Okay, so FYI, nowhere near what would be a therapeutic dose. I would easily give an animal more than I gave you, like a dog that was stressing out. And so know that. But yeah, like you're sensitive and you're not very clouded. You know what I mean? And so I could see that because a lot of the things cause blood and oxygenated blood to go to the right places. And so it would cause clear sight, and you're sitting under fluorescent lights or things like that. Also, if you guys are here, you're interested in some kind of holistic healing in some way or nature. So you're sitting
Or
in a
hoarding.
room full of people who are trying to elevate their energy and their light as well. So that would be another bright light to the side of coming in. And so that's the kind of thing that would, yeah, that's the point. Like you see clearly what's going
It
on.
was Damiana.
I think that all of it is correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, like absolutely.
It's very
The
mild,
passion-
but it's noticeable.
And I'll tell you, I'm a little heavy handed on the Dami. Like I make an infused honey that never, like it doesn't, it's Damiana, Blue Lotus and Rose. And we can't keep it, like it's gone in a day. And so it's ridiculous. And what gets reported more than anything is sight things. And we have nurses that very much are stressed out on the floors, COVID, all that eat the honey all the time just to be okay and have pretty colors.
And
feel like
somebody
everything's okay.
somebody
Yeah.
mentioned Hisho Wu, and I don't have much of a write up on there, but let's mention Hisho Wu
It's
real fast.
fortifying.
Yeah, so
nourishing.
very nourishing, and Hisho Wu is also referred to as faux tea, which is actually kind of derogatory slang term. Some folks in Hawaii tried to make a buck off of it. So Hisho Wu translated, Chinese herb, Mr. He's black hair is the way it translates. And the whole story is, see if I remember. So this guy was like 40, 50 years old. He was a drunk, no good lout, hair turned gray, wouldn't father his wife, any children, blah, 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 blah. He got drunk one last time. She said, get your ass out of the house. And he goes and he falls down, passed out drunk. And he wakes up and there's these vines that are intertwined and he has a vision. He's just drunk. And he harvested the vine. He goes into a cave and he comes out like 6 months later and his hair went from gray to black. And he comes back and he's sober helped. He comes back and he's strong and he's straight and he comes out and fathered many children, outlived his wives, and lived to be 212 years old. I will not guarantee the 212, but I'll tell you a weirder story. So the idea of, and our virility, male or female, as we age goes down. Your testosterone levels go down, and your hair turns gray. We don't see a lot of 15-year-olds with gray hair. It does happen. But usually we associate graying hair with age. So my mom at 75, 80 years old, I never remember, stopped dyeing her hair finally. And she had had a little scare with breast cancer. And so she was, one of the things I preach is don't treat family. You should
I'm
know.
laughing because you're like, Mom, nobody believes that. Stop buying your
Yeah,
hair."
yeah, right.
Like you say that.
But so I sent her to another herbalist that I trusted, and I don't know how she got my mother to do raw herbs, but she was doing raw herbs. She was boiling up this nasty swill, and one of the main herbs in there was Hisho Wu, Polygonum multiflori. And about 3-4 months later, she's in getting her hair cut, and her hairstylist goes, "Shirley, you got black roots coming in." And so it's insane to think that somebody's all white hair could start to turn black again at 75, 80 years old.
Makes me so happy.
And so we use it as a moistening, nourishing herb
Plants are amazing.
for people, again, kind of like the ginsengs that are debilitated, but it's much more moistening. It can cause loose stools, which is great if you have constipation, but not so great if you've already got loose stools.
Yeah, it's a thing. Also, don't ever plant it.
Yes, it will
Right.
eat your house.
Yeah,
It is an
it
aggressive
10
plant.
years to get it out of the house before.
So
Wow.
so for a number of these herbs that like yohimbe in particular that I talked about, it has some side effects. With a lot of these herbs that drive blood to either the clitoris or the penis, it does that. It drops your blood pressure. It opens up. It's a vasodilator. So it opens up the blood vessels. It allows the blood go down there. And if you have low blood pressure, if you're on blood pressure medications, it will drop your blood pressure frequently. And so the Suma, the Katabwa, all of these have the potential to drop your blood pressure. Yeah, if you ever look at the Viagra commercials, consult your doctor if you're on blood pressure meds. That's why they don't want you passing out when you're trying to have a good time. And there is one herb that nobody really knows much about that comes from Southeast Asia, like Papua New Guinea area, that I I'm sure it's still causing a vasodilation. I'm sure it has the potential to drop blood pressure, but I ain't seen it yet. And that's tongue cottolea, also known as lung jack. And it is, remember all the bad things I said about yohimbe? It's yohimbe without the bad side effects, which is pretty freaking powerful. And it's considered an aphrodisiac for both men and women. Yeah. And not having problems with it, I
Talking about
assume it
lung jack?
helps. Yeah.
Okay, so I will tell you, okay, I was raising my hand because of something that Nicole said that we all need to hear, because if she's brave enough to say it, it's ridiculously funny and I want to say it. But I want to comment on that. Like, we have it's basically a men's stamina formula here
Mhm.
that has all these things, some of these things we talked about in it, including the long jack in concentration. And we never make formulas just for everybody because everybody is different. And I was really pestered to do this. And I did it for some professional athletes who literally needed it for the muscle, like to do 2-a-day workouts in our Florida sun, just the energy of it. Fine. Anybody could use it. We could use it. We can make these balls out of it. Women, men, it's fortifying. It's got the aphrodisiacs in it. I made it so that the long jack would be acceptable. Like, it was not going to give any problem because we can't just hand it out to people on heart medicine. I had the first time I ever sold it, Bob gave me a hard time about it. I had it out at a festival. I had to be by myself. And this man walks out and says something like in code, kind of like Bob describes, like something for a man's nature. And I'm having to try to define what that is. Yeah, and yeah, for sure. And I realized, and I was like, oh yeah. So I'm like, here, and I kind of explained it. Not going to really be any contraindication. So because of that, it's not very strong. So he went away with it. Came back a couple hours later, bought every one that I had, and it's like, that's it, gone, cleared me out. And I'm like, oh really? Please don't eat it all. Like, do I need your, like, give me your med list real quick. Like, don't eat it all. But my point is, I've had that been replayed. This was years and years and years ago. So I agree. I think it's a really like viable answer for sure. Like, the long jack is amazing. And I think that the fact that we can do that. Hey, I want to read what Nicole said.
Yeah, yeah.
So she's talking about the Hisha Wu because we're on a delay. It says, it grew my hair back, stopped my hot flashes, and makes me, in big letters, super horny. Yeah. And so I have it in pots growing. And
Oh, that's
I wrote
hilarious.
back, nice. And then she writes back, can you balance it with something stimulating? So it must calm her down. And so we could put it with something, anything stimulating that doesn't have an opposite energetic, to help it. So you
It
think about
might
that. I just
do
thought it was
well
super
with
funny that
something
she
like,
said that.
and it's the Hishawu.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she was the one that had put it up.
Yeah, you might try something like the Eleuthero.
Yeah.
Or
that's a good one.
the
Or the
Eleuthero.
rinsing.
That
No?
might be too moistening.
Yeah.
Because
Oh, the loose stool.
yeah,
yeah,
so
got it.
like either the Eleuthero or maybe ashwagandha, but there's some big caution. Ashwagandha is a nightshade, so if you have nightshade sensitivities, don't use ashwagandha. But try Eleuthero. That might be a nice, gentle.
That's a good suggestion.
Yeah.
That was good.
And I got to do one more because I pulled the plant, so I can't not use the
Oh
plant.
yeah,
So
absolutely.
sorry.
Beautiful too.
Yeah. So and it was stunning. It was yelling at me. This is
It'd probably be a cutting.
yeah. Oh yeah. This would totally you could make 10 plants out of this.
Mhm.
So this is Coleus fulculsi. No, I never say it right. Fulculsi is the way how I always say it. And it's so funny. I've grown this for years in pots, and it's only recently I put it into the ground and kind of let it go. And I'd never had a flower before, and it's just obviously beautiful. This thing's like 6 foot high out in the back here, and this is an Ayurvedic herb that we use the root, not the aerial parts, but obviously I'm eating the aerial parts. I don't know. You want to throw a leaf at
What's it
folks?
called now?
Coleus, I wrote it up there. Oops, I destroyed the seed.
Coleus fulculsi.
Yeah, and its Ayurvedic name is Makandi. It's used in Ayurvedic medicine more for digestion, lung issues, skin issues, and high blood pressure. There's some research using it for glaucoma, but the Western use is weight loss and an aphrodisiac. It is hot and stimulating. Not as bad as the yohimbe. It's
Hot
way
and
safer,
stimulating.
but it can lower the blood pressure the way some of these other herbs are. So we have to
Is
be
that
careful.
because it drives the blood down?
Yes. So it's kind of like a mild yohimbe, but more
so-
stimulating the tongue
So I
cottolene.
have a question, because it's.
The roots though.
Right, because this is so juicy and wet,
Mhm.
even though it's hot, is it drying? No? Not really?
Neutral to slightly dry.
Because this is just like succulent.
Yeah, I know, but it's the root part
Are
we
you
use.
telling me to give them a leaf so they'll eat it?
Yeah, they can smell it and play with it or whatever. They won't die from nibbling.
See, I'm watching out for y'all, I know what it tastes like.
And do you want to tell them? Well, we'll wait till you're done
Yeah,
throwing that around.
I'll follow
So
up.
the purple flowers are also unique, and that's
do that.
probably why I keep nibbling them. Um,
Smell it.
and Renee will go on longer about the purple flowers on it.
You can do it.
But when we look at purple and blue flowers, they're oftentimes considered nervines, i.e. for frazzled nerves, anxiety, things like that. And so I've been eating the flowers and I'm like, well, they're a little bitter, a little aromatic, but they're kind of nice and mild.
I will tell you too, that all of these plants, when we have it growing, just playing with them does it. Like,
Yeah.
that's how good they are, like the juiciness of them and the oils get on you, that for real, just having them around. God, it's so
And I
good.
will say that the
Yeah.
tongue cottolene is a jungle
Don't worry about
plant.
I'll grab
um,
something. Don't worry about
Is a jungle plant in Papua New Guinea. It's a small tree. And I don't have any to sell yet, but I actually have one growing right now. I'm super excited about getting cuttings or something off of it in the future. So it is the root that's used. The downside of tongue cottolene is it's horrible tasting. I like nasty herbs to chew some of the, like we have it cut and sifted, not powdered. I had to spit it out. I was just like, oh, after about 2-3 minutes in my mouth, I was just like, nope, that's too much.
Oh, really?
Oh God, it's horrid. There's some. Here,
No.
you can pass a little bit around.
Oh, okay, I thought you were trying to feed it to me.
No, yeah, you can open the bag and pass a very small crumb.
I'm making it to a tea and then I soak goji berries in it.
Oh,
And
that's
then
funny.
eat the goji?
As a tea with
Yeah.
goji berries, that would help the flavor anything
Yeah.
like a hibiscus or anything. So,
How do you decide to dose it?
and actually we can do a little
He just
maca
tell
too.
you that I've been on vacation for a week and before I was leaving, he's like, I'm not taking this while you're.
It's really strong.
That's a
Like
good-
it's
that's a good-
scary.
Like a good indicator, you know, like, so.
Yeah, it's funny because a lot of times with folks who really struggle with high blood pressure, they're put on high blood pressure meds,
It's hard.
and because it's lowering the blood pressure, the medication is causing impotence. And so, like, no, you don't want high blood pressure. You don't want to die. And so they're not able to take Viagra or Cialis or any of those things. This has not so far, and I hate to say it, I tortured some friends who were on a lot of meds and were not able to get an erection.
We always make the joke, like, don't be friends with an
Yeah,
herbalist,
right.
'cause when she
And I was
falls off
like,
the ground-
you need to take your blood pressure like twice a day for a month if you're going to use this. And he was like, nope, stayed steady, no ups or downs, and junk works. So it really, it was so nice to be able to find one that seemed to be safe with the medications, because it is a major problem with high blood pressure medications.
No, you-
So-
try it, spit it out.
One of the things I always like to sneak in here, women are so often, and I always try to make a point to talk about women's herbs, the moistening herbs, those for vaginal dryness, because yay, what was it, 20 years ago or whatever, we came up with Viagra and now old men could have erections whenever they want it. And you got women who are 80 and they've got vaginal dryness, and that's not nice. And so we need to make sure that as women are aging, that we're taking care of them. Vaginal wall thinning, because of lowering estrogen, is a major issue where it can be horribly painful and damaging. So making sure that when we talk aphrodisiacs, that the partner, male or female, is being taken care of appropriately, because too often it's like the guy's getting his herbal Viagra and nobody's talking to the women about making sure that either they're present but also without moisture. Blood flow is half of the equation, but moisture is so important. And looking at some of these herbs like the shatavari is so important to make sure that's there. And that way we're not like using all the weird creams and saps. Oh, we didn't talk about cacao butter. So cacao butter,
That's such a pod choice.
I know, but I don't think we went far enough with that. The cacao butter, when people are looking for sex lubes, it's like, KY is gross, and not something. And if oral sex is involved, KY, like, I don't like the
You don't wanna
taste of
go back and
gasoline,
forth.
right? And so many of these synthetic
Well,
creepy
those are
things.
so hard to be.
Taste whatever you put down there in your mouth.
That's what
Yeah.
I'm saying. We're
You ever put
working.
garlic in there before?
Yep, we're working so hard to be healthy in other ways. It's
So
the petroleum. We don't do that.
Cacao butter is the
Bad.
fat from chocolate. Guess what it tastes like? It tastes like mild cacao with chocolate.
Buttery chocolate.
And so it melts at body temperature. So we can form these. They'll stay solid at room temperature, and you can insert them prior to sex. You don't have to go stop the horses.
No, it could be 24 hours before.
Yeah, and so we can use it to increase just the health of the tissues, the vaginal tissues, or we can, we're having dessert. Let's go ahead. I'm going to excuse myself. You can go and get the cacao butter, insert it, and it will melt slowly and taste good. Except,
Warnings.
thank you.
Never in my life. I am not moderate in any way. Never in my life am I average and moderate. It's a thing I'm working on. Got to herb for that. So I'm telling you this warning. Teeny amounts. Tiny
That
amounts.
too.
But yeah.
Also not condom safe.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because the coconut oil isn't either.
There you
I
go.
mean, tiny amounts. Tiny. Don't, like, if you ever get this made out somewhere, don't do what they say.
They sell them
It'll
that
be like a
size.
slip and slide. It will be no good.
Right?
Tiny amounts.
I
Like,
hate
you
to
don't need
say
a
it.
lot.
I had one of my patients, I was like, I don't know, this is supposed to help. And she's like, how much? I was like, oh no, this is what they sell it as. She informed me that was not the right dosing, that literally.
Secondary thing, the next thing that we'd recommend is coconut oil for the same reasons it's good for your body. It dissolves condoms. Like literally breaks condoms.
So we have to be careful with
FYI.
any of those oils
Yeah,
and
so you have
fats.
to make sure that you're not too
That's the
saturated.
downside.
Yeah.
Some of those natural products don't work.
Where do you put those phalantes in the cocoa butter?
Well, that's what we were talking about. So
Would totally work.
on the back shelf, unless they threw it out, there is a Kava Spalanthes cocoa butter
Is that all safe?
formula. It's not safe for condoms, but it's safe for the hoo-ha. Yeah, not only that, my question was, because I don't know how this would feel. Like, if it was safe for the hoo-ha and you were like, oh, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and do this, and then you had a relation, what would that feel like on a that might be upsetting. Like to have like
It's
like
funny,
pop-ups.
like, and I hate to say it,
Might not be a
I
good
can't say I've
thing.
tried it, but they're selling these cinnamon, like
And that's frightening. to me.
cinnamon burns tissues.
Yeah, you don't
I
wanna
would
sprinkle
not
that
recommend
anything
putting
on
that on stuff. And
No.
so something like
And so that's why
the
it
kava
freaked me.
would
I
be
didn't
nice.
know if the kava and the spalanthes would feel the same way.
the kava would probably be better for premature ejaculation because of the
Oh,
slight
you're
numbing
right. It would take some
property.
sensitivity.
That would be
off.
my guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my point is, Natalie, we made it a while ago for, oh my gosh, we can have that most adorable elders who are honest. We had an 8-year-old woman came in that was basically partying down and like, look, dude, she was saying to us that she needs to turn back into her 20 self, that she'd give us anything that we got. And so we made her a bunch of stuff, like we kept up in the ante on it all.
And for some of you, like the whole herb thing and energetics, all the crazy talk that we just said is kind of new. And so if people need enhancement, and sometimes you just want to be like, I want to be 20 again, have a good time. But if things are not working and functioning as well as they ought to be, that means there's an imbalance. And so although we can use situational herbs like this, the best way to do it is figure out what's out of balance and put a formula together that's unique to you, not just something that's got horny goatweed in it. And if we can correct those imbalances so that we can age appropriately, aging is normal, menopause is normal, those aren't diseases to be treated, then we can go forward, and a good healthy life is also a good sex life. That is part of a healthy life. And part of it also, lots of fun talking about, stiffies and vaginal secretions, and all that's super fun and embarrassing to do with a bunch of strangers. But the reality is, all of it's important. That time together, sharing a meal, and if it happens to be one that is centered around love and sex and so forth, it makes it better. And ensuring that not only do the parts work, but the brain works, so that that's engaged, and ensuring all of those aspects are there so that we can have a healthy sexual relationship as well as just a healthy relationship. I don't know,
All right.
questions?
So yeah, let's do questions. We're over time, but it doesn't matter because Bob's a talker. so am I.
Yeah, I
So,
got 20 more things I
yeah,
would do.
so any questions about anything we said or anything
our
that
day
you
off.
need us to elaborate on?
What's the root you gave us last? Foliage root?
No, it was the one that I cut open that you threw at me as tongue coddling, that guy.
Oh, yes, that was Tom Connolly. That's really nasty bitter.
No, it wasn't. It was,
Oh, it
it
isn't?
was super good.
Oh, that must be a different cut.
Yeah, it was bad.
No, I got some whole like
I almost-
slices that I was just like, "Ugh!"
I have bad too.
Yeah.
Nothing like this.
Huh.
It looks kind of like that, but it's just.
It's from the same company I usually buy it from.
What was this one?
So that was the coleus, the fucosi,
Mhm.
that one right there, the one that.
That was therapy, leave it in.
That Bob was talking about
Thanks for
using
coming
the roots because he was trying to teach you the leaves, and we were talking about the energetics of the fact that it's so moistening and nourishing and
There it is.
soothing, but to the touch which you have in your hand. And the roots were hot in a good way and stimulating. And so I was asking him, does that invoke the thought of drying? Because when we grab the leaf, it's so nourishing. And what I tend to find is the whole plant always is correctly in balance. And it's us that messes it up. And so that's why I was asking, like, hey, is there a record of using this leaf? Because I have a record of using it that's not at all a Chinese thing, something I probably should teach you. And so I thought that was interesting that when I felt the fleshy root, I mean the leaf, it balanced the root tendency.
And I will say, like, remember we have a clinic, we've got students for $10. We got a student clinic 3 nights a week that if you're like, I don't know, there's a bunch of crazy ass herbs, we can put something together that's appropriate. They'll go over your health history, look at your supplements, stuff like that. We've got lots of cool classes, free ones like this, yay, and not free ones, everything from Thursday night classes that tend to be more metaphysical to weekend intensives or 2-year-long programs. So
We have a flower essence cert kind of
yep, flower essence certification. We got an animal
basic
pet
of
care.
basic of crystals,
Crystal
animal pet
basics.
care. Your talk where you can ask Bob anything.
Oh, yeah.
But I moderate. You can ask us both anything.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I'm mainly typing like a crazy person.
But especially like I think it was Nicole had like interesting, way harder conversation dealing with seizure kind of
And-
things. That was
yeah, and I wrote to her.
that would be an interesting one to
Yeah, I
explore.
wrote to
Just
her
talking
to
about
make sure
seizures
she
in general.
contacts us to use her as the guinea pig for that.
Mhm.
And I'm gonna grab her.
And we can kind of explore just, I mean, it's hard to give somebody a specific recommendation just over the on the fly,
that's
but we
complicated.
can talk about seizure disorders in general for
As
that
well
open
as
forum.
why those things are helping.
Yeah, it's 2 hours of madness of me babbling incoherently.
I have a question about basil.
Sure.
Yeah.
Like it usually, like if you buy basil in the store, it's like gold, some tiny little package of it.
Right.
Mhm.
We shop at a lot at like Oriental markets.
Yeah.
And they always have Thai basil.
Yeah.
And it's super cheap and it's giant packages. What is the
Just as good.
difference?
So not only just as good, but Thai basil usually has color in it, and any amount of color you can get, you're getting this extra added nutrient to it, and it's usually purpley red, which drives more to the oxygenation in the blood.
And it's funny, the Thai basil in particular, I'd probably put that between the holy basil and the Italian
Agreed.
basil.
I
Like
would
it's kind
too.
of like right there
Yeah.
that we could add that into food. We could make pesto out of that even.
It tastes quite different.
Yeah.
It does, and I would use it medicinally for sure. Like that,
Yeah.
definitely 100%. So it's yes to a medicine for sure. Mhm.
Yeah, it's funny. Now there's a new thing on the market is the African tree basil, which I would put very close to the holy basil.
Really quick question. You guys said coconut oil dissolves condoms, but the cacao butter.
Does as well.
Okay, so I will
So
tell
coconut butter and really any of your oils can dissolve condoms. Yeah, which
I should be like.
I know, because I hate to say it, we've had some friends who've had some problems and they like, I don't understand why it keeps breaking. And I'm like, it took us a while to figure that out.
And so, yeah, it was an issue, and it's funny because, again, we're good experiments because we're trying to do everything as natural as possible. And after you have many of these weekends with us, when you're with me all weekend saying rude things about vaginas and penises, your bar of acceptable questioning and telling moves. And so we're really willing to tell you because we want everybody to be okay. And lots of red moon tint in women's health, and people aren't taught to touch their bodies anymore type of thing. And so, yeah, I'll answer you anything, because if I'm not going to answer you, who is? Like, we don't have our community anymore the way we would have. And so, yes, it's a thing that we figured out when we kept having these mishaps or broken condoms. I'm like, well, what are you guys doing? Like, size up. Like, what are you doing with said condom? Like, what's happening? Like, I was really very frank about, like, look, I know him, and I think that you're good. Like, you got the right size. Like, what's happening? And then we like deduction,
Finally
we
figured
figured
that
it
out.
out. Yeah, that we're like, oh no. And so we started asking everybody. So I've had more with the coconut oil than not. And I have more allergic reactions with the coconut oil. We have itching and skin issues with it. Yeah.
Yeah, the cacao is
Yeah.
so much better.
Less issues with
Thousand different
with
reasons.
the cocoa butter. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Absolutely. 100%.
And lots of new faces on here. So kudos to anybody who showed up your first time with us weirdos and online as well. Like, what a strange class to start with.
I love that they were answering each other's questions and helping each other.
Oh,
That was
nice,
good. And
nice.
Brooke, we have several students that are willing to talk. Babsy and Brooke were talking to people,
Nice.
and Nicole's happy to talk to.
And for y'all
Any
here
questions?
and online, I don't know whether Trisha, like the free classes, I don't know if we always send out the recording, but this is being recorded.
So
So
if you need
just email us for a recording if you want some of this insanity. We're happy to send it out to you.
Is that the non-latex condoms as well?
There may be
I
some
was-
exceptions to that because there are some like polycarbon
Don't forget.
that I'm not sure about.
I will tell you that mine was non-latex. The one
Okay.
that was the coconut one. That was the.
So I put out that general condom warning of like, I don't know
Now
after
we
that.
ask everybody like this is our
No, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so now we're always talking to everyone about it, like, hey, what do you use? Yeah, because now we're freaked out about it a little
Yeah,
bit.
right.
What was your question?
I wrote down, I don't think this is the right word when you're talking about figs, nutritious, but I don't think that was the word.
So
Nutritive.
nutritive. So
Yeah.
so for me, for
Same
figs, it's a quintessential breaking the fast of so
Yeah,
it's
when you were talking
yeah.
about that.
So it's one of the dates are two, but it's the quintessential breaking the fast because it's considered to be. It's kind of like the cacao pot. It's considered to be all encompassing. Like it's got the seeds, it's got the juice, it's got the sugar, it's got the fiber, it's got like this is it. Like if you only had a fig, if you only eat figs, like off a fig tree, you would be okay. All the places in the world that grow figs naturally, again, the monkeys fight for them. Secondary to both those things, the cacao and the figs, because I talked about the monkeys, they will strong arm wrestle you for them if they're fermented. They will get drunk off of them, like crazy drunk monkeys, and they will fight you for them. Like they want the drunk ones. They purposely knock them off. They know to let them sit. They go back and sniff them and then walk away. They'll come back in a couple of days. So my point is like monkey party. Yeah, like everybody wants them to party. That's the sustenance. So anytime and anywhere that we have fig trees natural, there's things tomes written about them. There's religious aspects written about them of being like an elevated, keeping you alive.
All right, let's let our people
Yeah.
go.
Mhm.
You can stay and
Total
ask
five, I would
questions.
use total
We have some of the herbs. If not, all of these are at the clinic at 2520 Central. Come by, ask for herb stuff.
Okay, so I'm gonna.
Thank you all.
I'm
Have a
gonna text-
happy Valentine's Day.
Hey, Bob, will you rattle off the clinic phone number for me?
727-551-0857.
Thank you, Bob.
You're welcome. Thank you so much, you guys. If you have any questions, let us know. We're on a delay, so I leave it up for a few minutes as everybody is signing off. So if you need something, throw it up there.
We won't throw
I'll
you out.
wait.
And where's the prom?
Do we have a composting out? Yeah, here you go.
Thank you. Yes, we have a double compost pile out there.
Yeah, we have a.
Yeah, if anybody's
Crazy
got
That is what everybody was asking. And the fact of the matter is not really. So there's two ethically, in quotation marks, ethically sourced ones that you can get at Rolling Oats. So you're from around here.
I'm pretty sure we have cacao butter.
We have, okay, so we have it at the clinic. We have cacao butter at the clinic, and if we have anything, we sort it out.
Okay.
But no, I try to bring it back from, you want a bag?
Yeah, I'll find one.
Okay, I try to,
Have that for
it
dinner.
is hard to find.
Yeah.
And so if it's edible, organic, and ethically harvested and purified in some way, then it should be fine.
Because rural uses like Jason, and
Thank
it's
you.
pretty.
Bye, no, they have 2 brands now that are
Really?
correct, yeah, it's correct, it's not Jason's, it's in the edible area. If you
Okay.
can eat it, then
Yeah.
you can put it in your hula.
Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, and so my point is,
I can get it at the clinic.
yes, so
Somewhere
you
there.
call this, we won't have to write it.
Anybody wants more chocolate, help yourself.
Oh, okay, then yeah, then definitely,
Okay, I saw you
definitely. Get it,
during the student academic clinic.
Oh,
and we'll
And I
make you
hadn't
something
gotten
too,
my
like, so if
period.
you want it, cause we have to
Oh
have
my
some
God.
depository.
Oh.
So whether that's coincidence or not, but I think with the, there.
Yeah,
So
we take credit for all.
Philanthropy.
Yeah,
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 two
the-
things
all the
there.
good stuff. all the good
I got a weird question about sarsaparilla.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I recall many years ago, because I was raised by my grandparents, and they used to go to like soda fountains and they would
Very-
have sarsaparilla.
Yeah,
And I recall many years ago, them, like, there used to be one on Madeira Beach.
Oh,
It
I
used to
could
be
totally
an
see that,
old
like a
like
soda
general
jerk.
store.
Yeah,
that was
like
a
a-
Really?
soda fountain
I could totally.
when
see
I
that.
was a kid. And I remember reading or hearing that they actually weren't allowed to give you real sarsaparilla because it
Mhm.
was carcinogenic.
The
I was gonna say,
He's trying to say that about
Yeah.
the heart.
sassafras,
I was gonna
but-
say
sassafras, it's
Right,
saffron.
yeah, so
At some
the
point, they said it
saffron.
was carcinogenic.
Well,
Yeah.
the problem is twofold on the processing and the harvesting, whether they're harvesting the right thing and then the processing
Well,
of like the oil.
Even
jar.
more so, the testing was done with saffron, not the plant.
And that was my secondary thing I was gonna
those
say.
rats.
Yeah,
Again,
yeah, they tortured all the
yeah,
rats,
so the
yeah.
next thing is that, if we make an extract of anything, not exaggerating, like anything's
right.
carcinogenic. It's
Sure,
if we eat
yeah,
the oil,
Yeah,
like
the
the oil.
the chemical
Well, like
is,
they were talking, like back
Right.
in the day, they were saying that people died from kava,
Yes,
right.
and
Yeah.
it was because they were
Ridiculous.
extracting
Right.
it with acetone.
I was gonna
but
say, come
like-
to my herb drug interaction
And they were
class.
getting, 1,000 times the cavalactans,
Yep.
but also 1,000 times the hepatitis.
yes,
Mhm.
100%, and that's exactly.
Yeah,
it.
they were doing the
Yeah.
aerial
So
parts.
in
and blah, blah, blah,
originally,
yeah.
we would have literally had bark peeled off and like right now, if we ever get to go
Right.
up to the.
Make it in
We're
a
always chewing
traditional
on-
way,
Yeah,
right?
it's completely fine, but it's easier than to put an extract into your soda,
Oh,
yeah,
Right.
so that's the
That makes
difference, instead of boiling it down.
I can't wait, sorry about that.
Handouts,
Nothing?
yes, not a
handouts.
problem.
Oh.
And what is your pet clinic or your pet thing, pet health?
I'm
I'll
not,
look
it
and
may
see
be
if
on the
it's on
calendar
the-
out
okay,
front.
Let me
I'll
get
look
you your
online, too.
handout.
Yeah, for sure it's online, but
Are these dates?
yeah,
Yes, you
help
can have
yourself,
anything
please.
that's here, have
Oh,
anything
some
that's here,
dates.
have
We
more
do
of the
not need
info.
more sweet stuff in our.
Okay, so hold on, I'm gonna, this one's, here was, Natalie, oh, these are the extras.
There's some up front too.
Yeah, sorry, where are you from?
Maryland.
Nice, I'm from Rockville.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I grew up in Hollywood. I know, right?
It's so kind of a
certification.
Yeah.
It's 3 weekends.
Yeah.
Okay. I
You
know.
don't
Renee?
have to do all three. You
I was
can
gonna
choose
say,
three.
for the
Yeah.
certification, you
So,
have to do all
so,
three.
so each one will have has a different certification. You match the number, you get hours for a certain level on each one. That
Okay.
will satisfy that for both Bach and FES. And I'll talk you through that. If you make it through all of them, it's like practitioner and then clinical. And
Gotcha.
so it does set you up hourly, especially if you turn in the forms, and I help you do it, to be listed on like the FES and Bach websites, even though you don't have their certification, that I satisfy their criteria for you to being an independent practitioner for that.
Oh, gotcha.
So you can only take one if you, is what I'm saying, you don't have to.
So you're doing it in the spring, this
Mhm.
section. Are you gonna do another one like in the fall?
I-
So like if I missed one, like
Yes, yeah, that's
like-
not a hard one to do a fill-in one,
to do
yeah,
a fill-in
Yeah,
one?
yeah, yeah.
Oh, gotcha.
absolutely. Once you go through one, go to the next one, yeah, for
Okay.
sure. So if you need to,
So I'm actually moving to St. Pete,
that's fine.
to literally so that I can go to your program.
Oh,
So I'm going to move, like as soon as it thaws in Chicago, so maybe
Oh,
like
Lord.
Oh,
the
you're from
first week of,
Chicago.
yeah, the
Holy
first
crap.
week of April, yeah. So I came to the class like in November.
I can't remember.
And
I was gonna say, yeah, I
like,
remember
in
going, what the
love,
hell are you doing
yeah.
down here?
And I talked my husband into letting me go away to college, so I'm
Oh my
gonna do
God.
this.
I love it.
So I'm
That's
very
amazing.
excited. But I don't
couldn't
know
even
based on the
believe it. I was
timing
like,
if I could make the March, but for sure, because I'm gonna move April 1st, I know I can make the April, but I would just need to make up like the weekend
could-
1 and weekend
You
2.
could do it on Zoom.
I could do it on Zoom.
Yeah, I'll do it on
Oh,
Zoom.
yeah.
Oh,
great.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, well, then that would work wonderfully.
Yeah,
Awesome. Well, I'll just send you guys an email then.
That's
perfect.
wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank
It's
you
nice
guys so
seeing you
much.
again. I'm glad that you're here.
Likewise. Have a good
Yeah,
night.
good luck. Going back to the cold. The balmy 80s
I'm here
today.
for another week, thank God.
Yeah, you can go to
Yeah.
the beach tomorrow if you wanted to.
Oh my God. So much food.
Okay, we're gonna start to sign off. You
Oh,
guys.
yeah, yeah.
All right.
I forgot everybody online. Hey,
Bye.
Brooke. Bye, Brooke.
Send us notes if you need anything. And I have the one woman.